Oh stood in front of her and asked, "Why them first? Does she really believe all this nonsense rumor about them?" La also said that they needed to calm down and talk. And if she frowned like that and wrinkles appeared on her beautiful face, what would she do then? The girl started to say that she would kill them all. But Ruan was surprised and asked, "Who is the white crane?" Heron immediately understood who they were really talking about and immediately said that he knew her. Yun also joined the conversation and said that if he was not mistaken, then this was Yurin, the headmaster's daughter. Everyone takes great care of her. Oh asked the girl if it was a crime to want to preserve such beauty. The girl said that she understood, and if this was their desire, then they should not regret it any longer. Heron said that it is true. Most likely it is Ren Doko. She is like a sister to the white crane. Her strength is impressive. Chang Hong also said that she is one of those people who acts like those problematic sunbeis and can really cause trouble. Chang Hong knew that the real problem was the criminal who dared to touch the white crane. Doko screamed at the boys that she would kill them all. La started saying that he would be chased by a beauty, and now his dream is finally coming true. But he threw a smoke grenade and shouted back for her to try to catch him. Ruan asked if they were deliberately provoking her to lure her somewhere. The elder replied, "Of course, they always have a plan. They can run fast and have perfect oratory skills. First you have to lure her and then give explanations." La suddenly asked if he was imagining things. Suddenly Rin came out in front of them and showed herself in all her glory. Doko asked Rin if she had come to this disgusting place herself. Why? Rin replied that she had come because there was someone here who could give her answers. Rin immediately looked towards the others and saw the cat's fear in their faces. And then Ruan decided to join the conversation and asked if she was talking about him. Rin replied that she wanted to know his name. Ruan didn't hide it and immediately introduced himself. And in response, he asked her, "What is her name?" Rin also introduced herself and asked in response, didn't he know who she was? Ruan said no, of course not. But now he knows. Doko said it was nonsense, and they say she still hasn't killed anyone. Chung Hong thought about it and saw that it seemed like she had come to kill them all. How should he formulate this in his report now? Ruan asked her if she only wanted to know his name. He was talking about the answers they came for. Rin said it was Mucoan, and asked the guy, is he also in the group Mucoan? Ruan asked in surprise, Mucoan, what is it? And a funny name. And then he remembered that this was that little thing. It was given to him by a decrepit old man who lied that such things were popular among young people. La said that they say this Mucoan is quite a popular person. Oh also supported and said that these old people are at the academy building. What can you do with these simpletons? The students like them and give them away for free. Rin said that he wanted to know his sub's name then. Ruan said that he was sorry, but it was a secret. Heron asked why he kept hiding the sub. How interesting he was. If he behaved like that, he could be misunderstood. Yun asked, but then, isn't being in Cheonmu Academy a guarantee of having Sabu? Rin said then if he could tell about his Sabu's other students. Ruan replied that fortunately he could answer that question. He didn't have any. Rin asked, not at all? Not a sister or even a sister? Ruan replied that if she asked like that, he didn't know for sure. Ruan said that maybe other students. Maybe there was someone like that a long time ago. And it seems like there might be a new one now. Who knows? And something happened that he doesn't want to remember, so he finds it difficult to give an exact answer. And it can be said that he doesn't have any, and he hopes that he won't. Doko wondered what was going on here. She realized that this show-off seemed to be the one who had caused the noise. Why was her sister asking such questions? Rin said that it means that even if he has a sister, he won't be able to accept her. Ruan told her that she wouldn't always be around anyway. If he had her, he would do everything to get rid of her as soon as possible. And now he's curious. Why is she so interested in this? Is there some special reason? Heron immediately thought that this was a good question. Chung Hong also realized that this was exactly the case. And why? Doko also thought in truth. What was her sister thinking at this moment? Rin said that the reason she would name it if he defeated her. Rin said that she was challenging her to a contest. Doko realized at that moment that this was it. She was going to punish him. Heron said that they would see something interesting today. But Chung Hong didn't understand why everything had to be decided so radically. Should they be stopped? Tai asked his man, are they trying to fight right here? The elder immediately became afraid for his precious room. Ruan said that if he wins, he will get something in return. But what about her? What will they get? Or will she only say that after he wins? Rin replied that she could check something. His weapons and skills, they can't be seen just like that. Last time, her eyes and mind weren't in a condition where she could be sure of what she saw. And so to find out whether her memories are real or not, she wants to see it again. And then Ruan said that he had to refuse, however. Their idle interest in each other was not worth her getting hurt. Dakin was surprised and asked, does he mean to say that he is strong enough to harm his sister? Ruan said it doesn't matter what he wants to say. He refuses. He doesn't want to participate. Rin told him to promise not to hurt her then, but then Chanhong stepped in and stopped her. Chanhong said that they don't have to draw their swords, and it'll be enough for them to just watch Ruan fight, right? It's not to punish him, is it? Rin answered that it was true. However, she would have to see it in action to understand. He usually didn't take out his weapon. Changhong said that she doesn't have to worry about it. Isn't there a festival of the three holy masters at Cheonmu Academy? There, anyone will give it their all and show what they are capable of. And he suggested that they immediately arrange a test at the festival. Namgung came out in front of the people and said that the wind was blowing in the same direction they were heading. He immediately addressed everyone. He said that from here to Cheonmu Academy, they were starting a race. The students were very happy and said that it was great. One of the students said that they were running a long road on foot again, just like last year. But the girl replied that compared to last year's suffering, this time it was much better. At least they didn't have to carry marijuana. The students said it was a good thing they removed them, although half of them didn't even wear it. Namgung laughed and replied that the master must have felt sorry to see that. The girl asked if that could stop him. The second student replied that of course not. Chol started shouting to the others that there were those people from Mucoan society, and he suggested not to talk about terrible things and to run in silence. In the evening, the disciples said that even if they kept moving at this pace, they still wouldn't get there before tomorrow morning, right? Namgung replied that it looked like it. But suddenly, one of the students said that he thought they would have to take a shower. Jiren got scared and asked in surprise, "Rain?" and immediately began to say that she did not want rain. Immediately after her words, thunder rumbled and rain began. The students suggested that they rest a little and continue their journey again. Namgung replied that he would have to do the same and ordered everyone to get ready. The students immediately pulled ropes onto the tree and made a roof over their heads to keep them from getting wet. Having secured the roof over their heads, they all went down and immediately began preparing the fire. Namgung sat quietly and said that everyone had done a great job today, and they were keeping up a good pace, so he thought they could beat the blue dragons. But he asked, what did everyone else think? The student answered him that he thought so too, although they were a little late, but helping the flooded village. But it seems to him that they are still not lagging behind. Namgung said that everything was right. They were no longer afraid of any winds or rains, and he wanted to return to the academy as soon as possible. At this time, Ruan asked the princess, "Is it true?" Rin answered him that if he wins this year, she will answer all his questions. Ruan asked that if he lost, let alone got into the rankings, then he would have to answer her questions? Rin told him that if he had any burning questions for her, he should try his best to win. Ruan said that he doesn't know yet whether he will try or not. He needs to get there first. He just needs to win, right? And now he's satisfied with everything. Rin replied that she was fine and had hopes for him. Doko thought at that moment, why was her sister doing this? What was on her mind? Doko told her sister that it was time for them to go, and she understood that they were about to have a serious conversation with her. As they left, everyone froze and waited for them to close the door. Tai sighed and said that while he was next to her, he felt like he was drunk without wine. Right-hand T replied that it turned out that he was not the only one who felt it. The moment he met her gaze, it was as if he had turned into a monkey. Heron also looked and said that there was definitely something amazing about it. It was like they were extras, right? Yun replied that yes, and said that Changhong was still very cool. He asked if that was the main problem. This idiot can get away with all his other tricks, but the icy white phoenix, this one definitely can't be left alone. If he doesn't want to say goodbye to his life, Ruan asked in surprise. Say goodbye to his life? Changhong asked him if he even knew why she was called the ice white phoenix. He thinks it's because she cuts through everyone with her cold sword without thinking. No, she doesn't. Rumor has it that those who dare to cross her path disappear before she even knows they exist. She is the most precious thing that the leader of Cheonjeongmyeong has, and the symbol of the most noble and pure in the white sex. He also knew that the target was one of the most dangerous people that no one had ever been able to defeat. Chung Hong said that although it was stupid to take back his words when he himself suggested it, but maybe it would be better for him to refuse to participate in the Three Holy Masters Festival. It would be in his best interest to never get involved with the Ice White Phoenix again. Chung Hong understood that this was being done so that he would not have to deal with him himself later. And then Ruan told him that he didn't agree. And then Tai also joined the conversation and said that it would be difficult. Ice White Phoenix said that if he wins, she will answer all the questions. Although the probability of failure is very high, but from this day on, they will root for the victory of the newcomer Ruan. Tae's right-hand man also said that if he wins, she will answer all the questions. The list of 100 questions he wants to ask her is still in the works, so let them wait a little. Chung Hong said that it was really scary. They would all die. Ruan asked him why he thought he had to explain everything, and asked him what they were doing there. Oh asked, "What is not visible? Before the sacred place is desecrated, they want to find traces of their presence, especially the icy white phoenix. Isn't that her hair?" La replied that no, that short and curly one. Let him look more carefully. Soon the place where she stood will need to have the floors cut out to the shape of her feet. But the other students asked them if they could be quieter and suggested that they concentrate. After all, they needed to write down everything that happened in detail before their memories of her became clouded. But then Ruan couldn't take it anymore and slammed his fist on the table, turning it over. He said in surprise that everyone dodged so quickly. Of course, it wasn't surprising. Ruan said that it seemed they had mastered the flying technique thanks to the experience that came with their life of crime. Chung Hong asked why he did this all of a sudden. Heron replied that he himself didn't even notice how his hand flew up. Ruan asked them, why not say goodbye to such a past? And it's not even a crime. It's just a sacred rite of worship of beauties. Chung Hong thought that this boy was wasn't Rin looking? Ruan said that whether it was a crime or a ritual, it was strange and disgusting anyway, wasn't it? And however, this is not the main thing now, so let them all gather. Festival of the Three Holy Masters. He heard them talking, and it seemed like some kind of competition. What is it really? What do you need to do to participate? Along the way, Heron told Ruan that the more he watched him, the more interesting he became. He agreed, not even knowing what he was getting into. He was looking forward to how he would tremble before the icy white phoenix. Ruan told him that it definitely wouldn't happen, so he shouldn't bother waiting. But why did the man get so worked up without explaining anything? Was he going through menopause? Heron replied that no one knows. It's still a bit early for 25, but he always says he has a lot of things to do, so maybe that's why he has indigestion. After classes, they were going to meet in the cafeteria. It was worth advising him to go to the doctor. But suddenly someone shouted that they were back, and they needed to find out where they were. Ruan was surprised and asked what happened there. Heron replied that he didn't know. He went that way. They stood at the back of the crowd and heard them shouting that they were rooting for the Blue Dragon. And sure enough, they won. The students said that they really were the best in Cheomu Academy. And no matter how much time passed, they were still the same Blue Dragons. Heron came up and asked if the guy knew what was going on. The guy turned around and asked, "What do you mean? The Blue Dragon beat the Red Falcon in the final." Ruan was very surprised at this moment and asked, "What?" And then the students started shouting that the Red Falcon had also returned. Ruan said that they had finally arrived too. He clenched his fist and realized one thing, that he had found it. Heron asked what the sounds were. And then Ruan replied that they were the cracking of joints. He calls it a warm-up. Heron said that this was some kind of tough and unusual warm-up. Maybe he wants to beat someone up. Ruan immediately laughed at his words and asked, "Is it harsh?" He shouldn't worry. It's all in the name of love and support. And it's also thought-provoking. Ruan realized that his students had only avoided the green grapes. He was too soft. Let the boys wait. This will happen again. Ruan decided that this was great and they would hurry up. But suddenly one of the students asked the others if he felt it too. They all immediately turned around and looked toward the people, but there was no one there anymore. After the party, Jiren approached Namgung and asked why he always wore them when he came here. This is the Red Falcon's room, not the Mucoan Club meeting. and she asked him if he couldn't see that the boys were worried. One of the students said that it was not a good sign. Lately, I have been dreaming about all sorts of heresy. Since I returned to the academy, I have been constantly having a bad feeling. The student apologized to Hawk and said that when he puts them on, he feels safe, he feels alive. Ox replied that Mucoan is just heavy, so he was crushed. Clubhead Mucoan said that despite the fact that 4 of the club's founders, Mucoan is now at the academy. The student asked Hyun Woong and Sister Tan why they came today. Could it be that they also joined the Mucoan club? Woosh replied that no, it wasn't like that. It was just their mood. Tan also replied that it was just memories that came flooding back. But the lad shouted that these memories were worthless. What memories? This was a bad dream. He still had nightmares about the master returning, and he asked Hawk if he had anything to add. Hawk started to run away and answered that no, nothing. And Sabu is an old monster. He has a bad feeling. He is even scared. Hawk asked Namgung why he suddenly didn't like Mucoan. The girl replied that it was a wise decision. To survive, you need to be constantly on guard. The gates of hell can open at any second. It was said that the likelihood of Sabu coming here was actually very low. No one here likes to be bothered, and getting along with the other students is also important. But the student replied that everything was correct. With a character like the Masters, one could easily be kicked out of here. Namgung said that it was a bit annoying. Even though the chance of dying would increase significantly from meeting Sabu, it was still a chance to become stronger. The student was surprised and asked him, "Is he crazy?" Tan answered, "Isn't this development, but an opportunity to age faster? But it is a chance to die faster." It was said that unlike Sister Tang, their chief considered the events on Mount Ami as wonderful memories. That's the power of love. Namgung asked him in surprise, what is he talking about? The others started saying that it was all true, and that's why he was saying it. And perhaps that night the stars really were beautiful. Dating within the academy should not be prohibited. The disciples said that it was true. If the master came here as a teacher, didn't they come last because they were busy with special training? Tan said that's right. They've become stronger. If that old man comes, he'll recruit new disciples who'll carry food. Hawk supported and replied that it would be so, and said that it would be very good to take and get rid of the Mucoans. Suddenly, in the evening at the academy, the teacher told Teacher Ho that he should also rest, and they would see each other tomorrow. Ho replied that it was fine. Having closed the door behind him, Ho sat down on a chair and decided to rest a little, but immediately felt that someone was in the room. He immediately pulled out his fire sword and realized that he couldn't smell the flesh. And had he really missed? And immediately Ruan appeared in front of him and asked, "Is this a newfangled way to greet guests? Such fiery greetings are a bit burdensome." However, the reception was quite warm. Ho replied that it was only for uninvited guests, but he was worried that he could not sense his presence. Ruan asked him how he could say such a thing. It had been quite a while since their last meeting. Ruan asked if the student was doing well. He had a request. Ho asked in surprise, "What request?" Ruan said he wanted him to look after someone. 10 slow-witted kids and 1 sick one. And then he remembered and said that these 10 people were his brothers and sisters. Ho asked in surprise, "Him? Who?" Ruan said that they were brothers and sisters. They became his students before they met him. And he congratulates him now. He now has 10 brothers and sisters. Being both a student and a teacher, he can make his brothers and sisters stronger, right? And it's worth keeping it a secret from these guys for now. Ho asked angrily, "What good was that? It was pure absurdity. Why should he teach them? And keep it a secret?" Sabu usually did that. Ruan replied that it was because he needed to find out about the Three Saint Masters Festival. He still had to do some investigation. Didn't he want to take into account that Sabu might be very busy? And then Ho replied that no, that wasn't true. Ruan said that it was much better this way. If he told anyone that he was their Sabu, he would tell everyone that he was his disciple. He thought the brothers and sisters would like that, and thus a noble, strong, and healthy student teacher will appear. But at the academy, everything was not so simple. Chung Hong unexpectedly packed his things in the evening and went into the closet. Having closed the doors behind him, he began to break something inside the closet, so that even everything could be heard from outside. Chung Hong was not giving himself away from the right side, and was something of an accomplice. It turned out that in his closet, there was a passage that leads him to the forest. And immediately a guy met him and asked him what was the matter. This time he came in person, and did not send the last ones, and why he wanted to talk not to the leader, but only to him. Changhong told him that they had something to discuss. He needed to know whether he should inform the head or not. If so, let him tell me what he should pass on, and he wouldn't want to make a mistake and then pay for it alone. Changhong said it was about their precious child. One of the reasons he pretended to be a 25-year-old rookie. It consists of reporting dangerous types approaching her and, if necessary, settling everything. And they need to find out about Mucoan's heir. However, if something goes wrong, what will they do then? And he's not talking about a dangerous guy getting close to the precious child. And what if the precious child's attention is for some reason drawn to some unknown type? Her attention was drawn to the opposite sex, a real troublemaker. Namong asked, was it the lady who showed interest first? Was it her? Changhong replied that it didn't seem that way at first glance. He would see what would happen next. Many people her age behave like that. In any case, if for some reason the precious child gets close to someone, if they make even the slightest mistake, then do they need to cover their tracks? And if so, should he hurry up and prepare for retirement in advance? And then they heard someone nearby saying that the Blue Dragon had defeated the Red Falcon in the final. Jen suddenly met a guy named Chan and said that she takes this kind of premonition quite seriously. And she had a hard time, but she managed to break through the obstacles and arrive at her destination. Chang told her that he was glad that she arrived on time. And he asked his sister Jen if what they were saying about her was true. And then she pulled out her blade and answered that it was true. And if he did not win, his brother would not exist. Chan began to fight her and placing his blade under her neck. He asked her if it had passed, but Jen jerked and grabbed his hand. She said she heard he had many marriage options. Then why did he choose her? Did he really want to marry her? Chan replied that if he thought about it, something similar was happening now. Should he leave things as they are, he asked. Changhong came to the academy and thought about Namgun's words as he suggested, but thought about it and told the head, the issue of resignation, he can agree with him. But if this guy hurts her, he's afraid to even imagine what they'll do to them. Let him remember that. And because he came back to the academy after so long, his head is in disarray. Why does he remember the old days and think about her? Before dinner, Yun asked Changhong if he was sick. He hadn't touched his food. Maybe he was feeling sick? The guy replied that he had simply lost his appetite, and his head had been hurting for several days. Ruan came over and asked if this was a symptom of menopause. Heron turned around and said that Ruan came and said that they couldn't find him in the room, so they went to the dining room first. Changhong got angry and asked, what menopause at 25? If he gets old, it's only because of him. Wherever he goes, he always gets into trouble. Ryuan asked in surprise, troubles? He does good to the best of his ability and capabilities. Ruan immediately took out a paper and told him to take this allergy prescription. Changhong asked in surprise, what prescription? Heron told him that he left so abruptly and with such an air as if he was going to kill someone. But in the end, he went to find out information about some kind of miracle cure. Ruan replied that he himself didn't know yet whether it was worth calling it a miracle cure. It was his secret technique that would allow Yun to reach a new level. This can be called a kind of behavioral therapy, a method of eliminating anxiety and all kinds of worries through movement. He can go to the specified place tomorrow and show this note. And don't worry, the method works, though it will take some time. Yun couldn't believe it and asked in surprise, is this true? And how can he thank him for this? In the evening, the chief gathered everyone and said that the mission was completed, and rumors were that they arrived almost at the same time as the Blue Dragons. Only this time, they helped the inhabitants of the flooded village. The teacher replied that everything was correct. They hesitated and lost an important competition, but they not only helped to restore the destroyed houses in the dam, but they also gave the villagers their money and horses provided by the academy and returned on foot. The snowman said they demonstrated not only their skills, but also their loyalty and humanity. The teacher also said that it is true. This is enough to award the victory not to the Blue Dragons, but to the Red Falcon. But the snowman replied that he didn't think so. Although the Red Falcons had acted generously, rules were rules. The outcome of the competition could not be changed based on a willful decision. The leader said that it was a good point. He was sure that if the Blue Dragons were in the same situation as the Red Falcons, they would have done the same. But the teacher replied that the actions of the Red Falcons were not to be taken into account. Why not declare a draw this time and agree on another competition. The leader thought about it and said that they would do so then. Recently, many significant events have happened at the Chonmu Academy. From the amazing transformation of the Red Falcons and the arrival of the 7th Divine Blade, to the discovery of a new item at the Cheomu Academy. And apparently spirits are watching over the Cheomu Academy. But suddenly one of the teachers said that Master Quan had asked for an audience with him. The chief asked in surprise, "Master Quan has arrived? Let him come in then." Quan came in and said that he apologized for disturbing him. And today he came to them with a request, and immediately seeing the snowman, he thought, "What is he doing here?" But the snowman was also looking at him and thinking that instead of bowing his head, this fighting cock would immediately proceed to a request, and now he would have to listen to him. The chief told Master Quan to pass, for it was very interesting what request had brought him to him. Quan sat down and asked the chief if he could entrust the Red Falcons to him. They needed to get stronger, so he wanted to take a look at them outside of their regular lessons. The chief asked him, why did he come in person? If that's the case, he'll lend a helping hand. Let him take care of these children. The snowman thought that the chief was actually joking. After all, Quan didn't want to take first-year students because they were annoying. And then Snowman said that in that case, he would take on the Blue Dragons. Since Master Quan was taking on the Red Falcons, it would be fair to appoint someone to the Blue Dragons as well. Quan replied that he wasn't sure that he alone would be enough. Shouldn't he hire someone else? Master Quan alone couldn't handle them dragons. The snowman asked if he was the first to suggest this. And this is the first time he has heard that he has surpassed him in anything, and certainly not in teaching. Master Quan asked him, did he say everything? Let him not act as if he had already won. And he thought, why is this snowman sticking his nose into other people's business? The chief said with surprise that if the two of them took on these guys with the same passion, then he would look forward to the competition between the Blues and the Reds. And then he relies on the two of them. The snowman replied that everything would be done. And Quan also said that the chief could rely on him. Master Quan understood that in such a case, by taking on the Red Falcons, he would destroy everyone he had taken under his command. The next day, Ruan released thunder and shouted at him to fly, and told him to fly right and left. Heron came up to him and told him that he was doing well, and asked how things were going with Yun. Chung Hong replied that he had no idea either. Even though he had arranged everything, he still had a bad feeling. Ruan told Quan to fight him until the guy dropped. He could handle such a simple task. Quan met a student and asked Yun if he was the sick student. Yun replied that he was not sick, and that was him. Quan, without immediately talking to him, pointed his finger to the side, and Yun, understanding the order, began to run. But on the way, Namong and his team met a guy, and he said that this man was that same Master Quan. Chan said he was somehow sinister. What was going on right now? The girl also replied that it was all strange, like déjà vu. Quan took up his blade and said that he would be responsible for their training. Fight each one in turn in pairs, so let them attack in threes. Namong didn't understand and asked, 3 at a time? And to fight with swords? Chan said that he had unusual energy, as if he was going to fight to the death. And what was he going to do with them? Master Quan said he would just test their abilities. Stop acting up. Even if they attacked in threes, he would remember each one of them. Namong immediately realized that the master did not know their names. Chan thought that this could not be. Although he did not know why, he understood what he wanted. Master Quan said he wants to fight until he is left alone with someone. First, he will attack the guys, and then, for dessert, the girls and the sick man. Master Quan got angry and asked them what they were doing. Let them attack immediately. Namong said that then they would go first. And he thought that he didn't understand much. But first he needed to focus on the fight. Chang remembered that he was nicknamed the Flaming Blade. Everyone was prejudiced against him, and it seemed that he was prejudiced against them. The third student also thought at that moment that this man was crazy. He had never seen how fiercely girls fought. If he did not reconsider his strategy, he would definitely lose. Namong didn't waste any time, and immediately pounced on him with his sword and used the 10,000 thunderclap technique. At this time, Chan used the 9 palaces technique against him, and the third guy used the fallen leaves technique, soul grinding. Master Quan was even happy and said that this is better. However, he uses 17 blade forms in response, the 8th form of the flaming blade, the fire wind. They are very far away, but his attack was so powerful that the students could not cope at all and were defeated. The students started calling the master different nicknames, which would upset him. But Quan told them that he understood all their techniques and predicted their attacks. The student was surprised that the master had destroyed those idiots so easily. He was monstrously strong. Jiren became worried and wondered if Namgung was okay. Jen also got really angry at the moment and thought, why don't they place bets? Why don't they play? Master Quan said for the next ones to attack. Axe was scared and thought that the three of them would be more than enough. This was becoming life-threatening. What was he going to do with them? Hack got angry at that moment and understood in his head that although they called him a flaming blade and a hero, in reality he was just crazy. Master Quan immediately shouted at them to attack immediately. The boys obeyed the order and all three of them attacked. But everything turned out to be much worse. The master said that the tramp was a fat wimp. They turned out to be even more pitiful than the previous trio. The master looked and said, well, finally, Kforny and the ladies must attack. Let them show what they are capable of. They must attack all together immediately. Yun decided that if that was the case, he would give it his all. And in the end, everything turned out differently. The master delivered a crushing attack. On the way, Chung Hong asked the boy what the point of this pointless training for thunder was. And why should a carrier bird be able to jump left and right? Ruan replied that in order to not become someone's dinner, you need to train. Heron laughed and asked, is that the only reason? Chun Hong said that the training was great, but maybe he could teach him to sit on his shoulder first. But suddenly Heron stood in front of the room and asked why the door to their room was open. Ruan told him to look. There was someone lying on the floor. Chung Hong asked, it wasn't a corpse, was it? Opening the door, Heron said that it was Yun. After that, Chung Hong asked Ruan, he didn't make a special request to Master Quan, did he? Ruan replied that he only asked for help with his allergies. Chung Hong told him not to lie. Didn't he ask to bring Yun to the point of near death? Ruan replied that no. This was clearly some kind of misunderstanding. Chung Hong asked, if not, then why did Quan do this to him? Heron asked Yun how he was. Yun opened his eyes and said he was fine, and that was because he was weak. Ruan asked the others if they had heard that the boy himself said he was fine. What was the problem? Chung Hong asked, does he mean that Yun is okay? He doesn't know what happened there, but this method doesn't work. It needs to be stopped before he dies. And then Yun stood up and said that he didn't want to. He wanted to continue this special training. But in reality, he doesn't want to, but he has to. And he has never had such intense and tough training. The master always told him that if he fell down, he would disgrace him again. Let him get lost and go to sleep. But Master Quack is merciless. He fell, got up, and fell again. And Quack is the first master who treated him like that. He must continue. Everyone was surprised by his words. Ruan asked them if they could see that Yun was right. In this club at this time, Tai said that he doesn't understand. He's crazy, and he can't leave his dear club. Maybe he should take his treasures from here. Oh asked what? Didn't they go from the dark side to the light? He thought that was why he agreed to that guy's proposal. La also said that it is true. They came to find out information about the three holy masters. And the leader wants to say, should the treasures in this room be moved or thrown away? Tai replied that no. They worked so hard to collect all of this. Love is not a sin. And no, if they hide these treasures, they will never be able to collect again. This cannot happen to their club. The guy said he could only sympathize. But did he think that Guy and his gang would destroy the place if they kept running in different directions? O replied that it would definitely be so. On the day of their admission, they launched a covert operation, but the next day they learned that they were being followed. La said that's why it's not a joke. He's the god of destruction, and he doesn't know what the guy did exactly, but he thinks he summoned lightning and a hurricane. And to be honest, there's something that's bothering him. When they were caught by the sisters, they were subjected to real torture, but something tells him that they secretly enjoyed beating them up. O said that it wasn't fun at all. He wished he could be that decisive, though. La also said that it was true. Sometimes they get into trouble for things they didn't do. Anyway, he liked those two. They could express their opinions. However, over the past 2 or 3 years, their reputation has deteriorated. Of course, this only applies to Cheonmu Academy, but they will graduate someday. O cried and replied that of course. After graduation, they could be labeled. And because of this, he could be put in a snake pit at home. Tai said that yes, he did accept that guy's offer and took that outcome into consideration. But that doesn't mean they should stop doing what they want. From today on, they will change the appearance of the Girl Lovers Club so that they will not find out anything. They will act secretly. These treasures will also be moved to a secret place. Suddenly, a servant came and told the head that the deputy head of the club had come. Could he come in? Tay replied that Tay had come to them. Let him come in. Tai turned to the leader and said that when he was on the Blue Dragon's mission, he heard rumors that the club had been turned upside down and the club had changed. That's not true, is it? After a long time, he came to ask how close they were to achieving their cherished desires. Tay replied that it was just a rumor. They will act more covertly, but in fact, nothing will change. However, what is Tai talking about? What is this rumor? He heard that members of Guchonghua are not allowed to join the Aesthetics Club. Tay replied that even if he was not a member of their club, couldn't they call him their comrade? He had an interesting proposal. And then a guy came in and asked them how they were doing. He had something for them. The guy said that the Pavilion of Pure Aroma, the key that will allow you to enter the 8th building of the female dormitory. So why don't they place bets? And everyone can place 10 yang and see the treasure. Tay said that since only a few people can get in there secretly, he wants to take a few people with him and let the rest of them see the treasure they found for money. The guy replied that it was. Regardless of whether he had the key or was using disguise, only 4 could get in. Tay said that anyone here would like to take advantage of this opportunity. The guy immediately answered the same thing, which is true. And so, to spare everyone from regret, they will choose 4 representatives. And then among those who obtain the most valuable treasures, they will place bets and determine the winner. The winner will take a third of the winnings, and the participants who guess the winner will share the rest. T replied, who knows? The distribution of the treasures found is more important than the distribution of money. After all, that is the essence of their club. Tessie said that the proposal to hold a vote was excellent. That's what they would do. Each of the 4 members would give the club half of the treasure they found. Participants who guess the winner will receive the right to choose a treasure instead of money. The guy asked in surprise, really? In any case, it would be better to put money, but he is a club of aesthetics lovers, so this option will do. And he suggested doing just that. Everyone else immediately became happy and started shouting that one of them was betting on the head of the club. The guy said that now, of course, we can discuss the details. His right hand was surprised by his words and looked at him. The senior at the academy said he didn't want to know the details. He didn't need them. And anyway, congratulations. Everything is going exactly according to plan. The guy replied that everything was going smoothly. Why was the person in charge of finding the key to enter Baekhyangwon evading? The elder asked if this was what he had ordered to do. He had asked to deal with Kuchonwe, and he was demanding that the necessary item be prepared. The boy raised his hands and replied that he understood everything. And speaking of the item, how did he manage to find the key? And what about the other items that need to be prepared? And what about the personal belongings of Ruan and his companions? The elder replied that the key and the path to it were already prepared. Everything was ready, so just let him wait. The guy asked right away, how much? He would prefer to leave them alone until it was time to sneak into their room. His stealth skills were no worse than beyond ties. The elder replied that no. He knows about his abilities, but he remembers that the 7th divine sword lives in his room. The elder said that rumors were circulating that this year marks the 5th anniversary of the formation of the Chilcholzwe, and the days when Moen Hui was surrounded by madmen on all sides are long gone. And thanks to those events, his skill reached unprecedented heights. Due to the many traps and disposition of the Moen clan, for the last 3 years, it has been impossible to get into his room. He has incredible detection and tracking abilities. In any case, if he is caught, he will be immediately labeled as an accomplice of Guzhonghua before anything even starts. Therefore, he should not go in person. The guy said that if that's the case, would anyone be able to get into their room? Even if someone were to be found, how could they entrust such a thing? The elder replied that he could not know. They could arrange for cooperation with someone, but it was too much to ask for secret entry into Baekhyangwon. He is only interested in the room of the 7th divine sword. He asked Chilcholhua for help. They are the best candidates for that matter. The boy asked, what? Chilsolway? The elder replied, yes. There is a Chiljeongwei representative in their Kuchenhui. He gave them information on how to secretly enter his room, asked them for a couple of favors. One of them was to give them the key to Baekhyangwon. The guy asked, what does he mean by that? That they will collect the necessary items of the seventh divine sword, and at the same time capture Bai Ruan's items. The elder replied that everything was correct. In any case, when everything was ready, he should act at his own discretion. The guy said that, of course, in such a situation, the members of the club of lovers of female aesthetics and the team of newcomers will be excluded. In the evening, Ruan was walking around the academy and saw his neighbor also going home. He asked if he was hanging out at Cheonmusogak again today. Ruan said that training at dawn, studying in the morning, training at lunch, studying in the afternoon, studying in the evening. Doesn't he get bored with life? We replied that no, and there were Confucius's analects there. He was used to studying, and this disorder did not please him. We said that someone was here. Maybe he knows who it could be. Ruan said no, he just came. But he said disorder? Granted, some things had changed. Hui immediately saw that the bed linen was rumpled. There was a dent in the pillow and dirt. The books were arranged untidily. Ruan said there was a strange smell. The room smelled different. And this is a male dorm. But why does it feel like a woman has been here? Hui said that the Dark Mother has arrived here. Ruan asked in surprise, Dark Mother? Who is it? Hui replied that he was ignorant. First of all, they needed to find out if anything was missing. And then the boy thought. Ruan asked him, does he call the thieves Dark Mother? The room is too clean. Does he mean that money or valuables are missing? Hui replied that the Dark Mother did not need jewelry. However, several things were missing. A floor brush, a comb, and the pajamas he had worn yesterday. Ruan asked in surprise why someone would do that. Hui replied that he didn't know. He couldn't explain their train of thought. And judging by the dents in the pillow and blanket, it looked like someone had been lying on it. That's why he's sharing a room with someone for the first time. Let him see if he's missing something too. Ruan opened the cabinet and said that the valuables cabinet was fine. Hui asked if it had been broken into. Ruan said no. He didn't even have a key. He made it himself. It can only be opened by applying force to certain parts of the lock, following the correct sequence. Ruan said that they didn't seem to have touched anything important. They didn't touch anything at all. And then he suddenly picked up his sheets and asked why they had torn off a piece of the page. Hui said that in such chaos, how could something be noticed? No, it is not that important. And since he does not keep it on the shelf, it is quite valuable. Did they desecrate a book on martial arts? Ruan replied that no, it was a book with his personal notes. Why did they only tear out the notes and not the whole page? And now he'll have to explain who this Dark Mother is. He hates it when people touch his things. Hui said he suffered because of him, and he's sorry. She is often called the Dark Mother. She is the head of Chilchilho. She hides her age, name, and true face and is obsessed with it. She stalks him, calls herself his mother, and controls Chilchelwe. Hui said they weren't even a couple. He never wanted that kind of attention. He had recently thought that the attention had finally waned. But now that the boys' dormitory had been secretly infiltrated, it seemed that she had come to this place. Ruan replied that love had become a disease. This was some kind of madness. And if they could find out the cause, the situation would be resolved. It seemed serious. And could he distract them? And then Ruan said that all you need to do is join something. It's called the Aesthetics Club. Hui said he heard they were organizing a meeting with girls. Why would he do that? Ruan replied that they had previously been meanly pursuing girls, but now they should become a center for youth projects, supporting cultural, scientific, and educational exchange. If he joins this club now, the girls will immediately cool off towards him. According to his assumptions, events will unfold approximately like this. Now he is so popular that the attention of sluts. And here is the moment of his entry into the club of lovers of aesthetics. Here the situation will change immediately. If everything goes smoothly, then Chil Songwei will fall apart. However, this will provoke a storm of hatred towards him. But he shouldn't worry. Soon the opinion about the club of aesthetic lovers will change. And then the popularity and reputation will grow gradually. And everything will return to normal. And if we rely on his experience, then this is a good way to spite perverts. Also, in this case, radical changes are effective. Hui wondered if his neighbor's past, if this disgusting and unkempt appearance of his had changed. Of course, this is sound advice. Besides, it must be very difficult to talk about such a terrible life experience. Ruan asked him if there was something still bothering him. First, he needed to join the club, If he didn't like it there, he could leave it right away. Don't worry, he's not going to make him do anything indecent, and except for some announcements. Hui said it was the duty of a noble man to accept the truth as it was. I'll have to join in. Ruan told him that it was true, and he thought, what was Hui talking about? In any case, if he joined, the club's reputation should improve. And this is even good, and the better the reputation, the better the word of mouth works, the more visitors. Ruan brought him to the club and said that he had written everything, without missing anything. But then Chung Hong came and shouted at him to stop. Chung Hong said that it was okay, but why did they bring Mo and Hui's seventh divine sword to the club? Heron said that there were rumors that something interesting happened while they were in class. Heron said that when people saw the seventh divine sword enter the aesthetics club building, chaos reigned everywhere. He expected there to be pools of blood. Chung Hong said that everyone there is already foaming at the mouth because someone said that Mo and Hui came to apply to join. Hui asked if it was like this. He thinks if it wasn't for Ryan, he would never have joined the club. So what weaknesses did he learn about? Chung Hong asked him if he was afraid of Chil Chun-hui. Everything had to be canceled right now and pretend that nothing had happened. Otherwise, he would be the one who would suffer. Hui replied that Ruan simply told him about the club and that he made the decision to join on his own. And if the Chil Chun-hui members harm him, if they harm anyone else, including Ruan, he won't sit idly by. Heron asked him if this was the first time he heard him call Ruan. Chung Hong asked, what does it mean to someone else? Does it mean that someone has already suffered at their hands? Ruan said that anyway, the introduction is complete. And how about writing it in big letters and hanging it on the clubhouse? And call it a promotion? Hui replied that he would write it now. He immediately wrote the announcement with his own hands. After seeing the ad, the guy asked his friends if the aesthetics club would really change. They were serious, weren't they? The second guy replied that this poster, which looks like an ad for Chil Jungwei, is quite interesting. And it is said that the seventh divine sword was somehow damaged by them. But the third guy said that the walls have ears. He really didn't hear this gossip, and he suggested that it would be better to keep quiet and watch. But one of them said that he doesn't know what might happen in the future. And the aesthetics club in Chil Jungwei, they're all crazy. Tai went to the head and said that this was their chance. If they miss this event, there might not be another opportunity like this until graduation. Tai replied that it was a good decision. The plan that Heil Tai came up with was perfect, and they didn't even notice it. O said that the chief, despite the publication of the announcement, seemed to have been forced. Therefore, tomorrow night is ideal for their business. But if they are caught, then there will be no bones to collect. The boy asked him if he knew this. Why didn't he tell him when he was chosen as a representative? Even if they weren't caught in the dorm, if Ryuan and the seventh divine sword found out about it. But La said that if the Moan clan comes, it will really be the end. But the president has dirt on them. What should they do? But at this time, Chung Hong was telling the man to stop doing this. He couldn't believe that a woman would break into a male dormitory. Heron replied that in any case, the Cheonmu Academy is a new training ground. Where did they find this? Is this the treasure of the Moan clan? Hui said no, it was Ruan's castle. Ruan said he told Ren how to use it. If he's not missing anything, then they need someone to bring a book or something like that. Chung Hong said that it was safe in this situation, and suddenly he asked why he didn't tell him and Junho. Ruan told him that because he snapped, and Junho could be kidnapped for knowing about it, and he asked them if they had seen Junho. Heron replied that he was training today. Ruan asked if he was trying to do the impossible again. During training, the disciple asked Yun if he was alive, and if he fell asleep right on the ground, his mouth would slide to the side. But Rin said it was that damn fire that was making everyone want to lie down. Let him rest. But Hak was angry and said that he was going to die. All that was left was to put them on a spit and roast them. But Chin said never to say that in front of Master Quan. He can really arrange it. However, he is far from their master. But Namgung laughed and replied, nevertheless, he was glad that they finished quickly today, and he thought he wasn't in a very good mood. I wonder, where was he in such a hurry? The leader gathered all the people and said that after the Three Saint Masters festival ended, they would hold another test between the Blue Dragons and the Red Falcons in the middle of next month. The chief said that those two, in particular Master Quan, have already started training children. Will such a time frame suit them? Snowman said that the Blue Dragons are ready to go tomorrow. However, he is not sure about Master Quack. Quack replied that it was he who should doubt him. What tomorrow? The Red Falcons are ready right now. The head said that he understood everything, and he sees that the enthusiasm is just pouring out. He will wait impatiently. However, at this event, they must maintain healthy competition, and therefore the abbot asked the official representatives not to enter into conflict and not to fight. Quack asked if they could organize a battle between teams, a battle close to a real battle, but not a real one. The snowman replied that if the ruler allowed it, the blue dragons would support this proposal. True, there was a risk that one of the red falcons would suffer, but that was not a big deal. The leader replied that he would never do that. For safety reasons, it was better to refrain from direct confrontation. But then the elder came and asked, "Isn't it fun? There are few things that can be as useful as a fight that is close to the real thing." The leader immediately rejoiced and said that he had come. But Kvak didn't understand anything and thought, "Who is it? How did he come in so silently? And why did the snowman suddenly become so polite?" The elder replied that he was politeness itself. He saw that this old man was also in good health. Every time he greeted him like that, he felt even older. The leader said that even time cannot break Master Conson. Quack thought, "Conson? If these two are so polite to the old man, then this man with the sword is the noble sword Conson Ilchwi. He is one of the strongest swordsmen." Quack said that he had heard of him, and he introduced himself. Ilchwi replied that even such an ancient old man as he had heard of the Lord of the Volcanic Sword. He was one of those who fiercely despised other swordsmen, and he thinks that banning fights is unreasonable. How about this proposal? Since the fighting was necessary, could he be the one to monitor what was happening? The leader asked him if it was too much trouble. In this case, safety will be guaranteed, and he will have nothing to worry about. Ilchvi replied that this was excellent. Then he would be the overseer of this exciting and healthy competition. The chief laughed and said that this was very good. Quack thought, why does he feel like he is at a disadvantage? At this time, Doko was talking in the forest that she heard that the seventh divine sword that sister was looking after had joined the aesthetics club. The club was growing bigger and causing more and more trouble every day. Doko asked, should the sister then wait for the festival of the three holy masters? The man who joined the club of aesthetic lovers. Should she fight him right now? Even in the face of death, she would not miss the opportunity to test her abilities. Rin said that there was no need for that. And then a girl came and asked them, who were they talking about? Who joined the aesthetics club? Besides, the advert said that the club was going to change its policy. And suddenly Doko replied that now everyone was here. But the girl told Doko's sister that she was looking for her because she needed her help. She is sure of the truth of this information because she received it secretly. And it seems to her that tonight perverts will penetrate the hostel and she will have to fight them off. Doko immediately turned around and asked, are perverts going to get into the dorm? What is she talking about? The girl replied that she had heard it from friends in other dorms. They said it was in the aesthetics club. Anyway, they would try to get in either tonight or tomorrow. Rin said that of course it could just be gossip, but if it was true, then it was a big problem and they needed to be on guard. Doko replied that they were members of the aesthetics club and that one could only expect obscenities from them. The girl asked, is that possible? To sneak into the dorm? Didn't they say in the announcement that the club would change its direction? But the girl said she knew, but what if it was true? What should they do? The ones in charge of everything related to the dorm are Sister Pyeon, Sister Doko, and Sister Na. However, she can't find Sister Pyeon. Doko asked her sister what she thought. What if it was true? But the girl said that it was absurd. Besides, it wasn't that easy to get into the dorm. She wondered if they didn't believe her. She was the only one who knew to be on guard. Was it really a mistake to tell her? Even though she doesn't know for sure whether the perverts will come or not, how can she stay away? Rin said that was true. Doko also said that she felt like they wanted to die. They decided to test this by hiding behind a stupid wall newspaper. She intends to deal with them right now. The girl said that if she goes with him, then she goes with her too. Even if she doesn't live in a dorm, her heart is always with them. The girl asked, what if the perverts from the aesthetics club deny everything? The girl answered, nevertheless, they will think that they have been exposed, and they will refuse to penetrate the hostel, and immediately offered her to go and have fun, and even the hour of reckoning has come. But suddenly another girl came and stopped them. She said that she was passing by and heard something strange. The girl asked, "Dorm break-in? What are they talking about?" She had also heard about the perverts from the aesthetics club, had she? The girl told Sister Kuyan that it was true. She heard it from a friend. Just don't ask which one. She understood that since she was the only one who knew about it, she needed to convince more people. The passerby said, "So it's true, they've gone crazy." A passerby asked, "So they are going to punish them right now?" But the inner man said that it would be difficult. According to the deputy head's orders, she must first escort them to the dormitory and then catch them. But how can she persuade them? Doko asked Sister Kuyan. She also has access to the dorm. Would she like to go with them? Rin replied that if they went to them right now, there was a high chance that they would deny everything. And if Sister Kuyan had something to say, she was listening. The girl replied that it was true. She also had the same opinion. Then what about preparing and waiting for the right moment? Doko asked if they could set a trap. The girl replied that if they went now, they would deny everything. Besides, they could change the date of the infiltration. And in such a situation, they will be at a disadvantage. Kuyan also said that it would be better to do so. She is afraid to even think about such a thing. The younger one was delighted and replied that this meant that they would ambush them together with the 12 dormitory commandants. She would also go to the dormitory, and she wanted to see it with her own eyes. Doko said no. For everything to go smoothly, the commandants had to be kept in the dark. They would only get in the way. The girl said that if the perverts find out about this, they will probably change their plans. And she thought, why does the one-eyed girl doubt? Kuyang said that the dorm residents should be prepared to defend themselves. Baekhyangwon is the largest of all the dorms, and perverts will try to get in there. Rin looked and replied that Baekhyangwon was more than a dormitory. It was a place that the Sword Queen herself founded when her Sabu was one of the Cheonmu constellations. She heard about Sabu that on the top floor of Baekhyangwon, there is also a Hall of the Queen of Swords. This hall holds all of her experience, and 12 commandants guard it in turns. Because the security is excellent, there are very few ways to get into this place, especially without a guide. Dako asked in surprise, "The guide? Could it really be the guy who joined the aesthetics club?" Kuyan replied that no, that couldn't be. He had nothing to do with Baekhyangwon. For safety reasons, she didn't tell him anything. The girl said that instead of arguing, it would be better to discuss countermeasures. As her sister said, there weren't many ways to get inside. And several options come to mind. It's a pity that Sister Pyeon is not with them. But if Sister Doko and Sister A make a decision, the others will agree with it. She knew that she and the dark matter had a plan. As long as they followed it, serious damage could be avoided. Rin said that was fine, and then she would like to hear what Sister Kuyan-jin thought about it. Kuyan replied that she had the opportunity to let Sister Pyong in on their plan. She would give her a note. At that time, Kvak was walking around and saying to himself that this snowman was impudent, and he was constantly interrupting him. And now he decided that he should be punished. He would like to send him a great present. But suddenly the snowman came up to him and asked him what he was thinking about. Why did the man who had previously only stood aside and fought now decide to teach children? Or did he develop a mad passion for teaching? Kwak replied that he felt sorry for the children who were taught by a snowman like him. And he also asked him why he decided to teach children, but he himself interferes in the affairs of blue dragons and others. The snowman replied that it was his duty. He didn't know why he was pretending to be passionate about teaching, but it wouldn't produce the effect he wanted to see. And he thinks that was such a desirable character. He makes children only swing their fists. With such an education, the Red Falcons will never defeat the Blue Dragons. Kwak answered him that he knew his cold and foggy nature. And what could the snowman teach children, being so soft? And he was no better than him. Snowman knew that the enemy's sign could win the battle, and he thought he knew nothing about blue dragons either. And now he told him that he was a great teacher. And 5 years have passed since he arrived here and became the only great teacher at the Cheomu Academy. And without revealing his own skills in martial arts, he created 4 scriptures. Dozens of people follow his doctrines. Among those he taught, no one fell on his face. Nowadays, they are scattered in different directions, but they still follow his teachings. In addition, he analyzes and tries to apply all the trends in education. Kvak wondered if there was any way to shut this old man's mouth quickly. What would that devil do in his place? The snowman said that this is why blue dragons are the young talents that can be relied upon at Cheomu Academy. Quan started laughing and said that it was even great, and asked him why he was making a mountain out of a molehill. This time the earthworms will win, and they will fight with swords and debate well. You can rely on them. And then the snowman said that he could not watch anyone insult the blue dragons. For this he would taste his wrath. And didn't he know who the leader of the blue dragons was? In the country house, the girl held a pill in her hand and asked, "Did they all collect what she asked for?" The servant replied that yes, of course. Everything needed for a cure-all pill. Snow lotus seeds, white-green deer antlers. And let the lady mix everything in equal proportions, and there is no need to worry about anything else. However, she is very thin. Why does she need such medicines? But the lady took the coins and threw them in his face. The servant replied that he had said too much, and if she did not do as he said, then the medicine could become poisonous even then. The lady said that in the hands of an ignorant person it could become a weapon. If he wanted to continue doing business, he should keep his mouth shut. The servant replied that yes, he would keep it in mind. But then the warriors came and asked the lady if she had received the cure for all diseases. The lady looked and said, "Of course. Now they can move out." The warrior said, "It turns out that the head of Kuchongwei is now in the Blue Dragons. Now they will glorify Gunung Palgawe and cause trouble for the head of Guchunghe. And since the lady has received the panacea, it means the head's strength in the match against the Red Dragons will increase." The lady asked if the head of Guchongwei was that kind of person. She didn't know everything completely, but she hoped that it wouldn't interfere with the competition. Arriving home, the lady noticed that it was somehow quiet today. She returned too late and had to stop here and there. At such moments, she is glad that she lives alone in the room. Having opened the medicine, she felt that she was tired, and it would be great to take the panacea today so that it would absorb the disease. And now she decided that first she needed to relax. But at that moment, she heard something and looked at the door. At this time, there were people outside the door who came to steal girls from the hostel. There were times when everyone admired her plump physique, and so she thought she was beautiful. However, deep down, she was plagued by doubts. But she lived with her father at Cheomu Academy, and she also learned the truth one day. One day a girl came to her and introduced herself as Yerin. All the other people were very surprised and said that she was beautiful and looked like a virgin who had come down from heaven. She saw how true beauty awakens sincerity, love, and admiration in people. And she came to this conclusion after one day she met someone who made her heart beat faster. The leader said that Ren was the heir of Sanrimbo, but suddenly a boy came up to them and said that his name was Yeoncheon Myung. The girl asked the boy if he was bored. While the adults were talking, maybe they could play together. And it was his words that brought her back down to earth. But that day men called her fat and said he didn't want to. After that, she used all the methods and techniques to become slim. Workouts and more workouts. And then came the diet. And as a result, she became even bigger. She grabbed her head and asked why. The mother spoke and turned to her beloved daughter. She said that she should go out and eat at least a little. And if she undermined her health, all the work would go down the drain. The boss also said that she may look chubby, but her body is perfect for learning martial arts. And even her maternal grandfather was impressed by her abilities. But she told them she didn't want to. The girl said that she looked like a pig. She didn't want to be like that. And suddenly his maternal grandfather turned to him and said that he had found a great reed for their sweet Ha-Ren. And this fantastic technique will allow her to mold herself into what he wants. It is called the spiritual technique of returning femininity of the Indian Mahayana. And soon this technique became her only ray of light. Grandfather, who found this wonderful technique. Mother, who prepared a panacea for her so that she could learn it as soon as possible and not gain weight. And her father, who shared all her hardships, thanks to them, and 3 years of grueling training. She remade her former self. This secret, which no one knows except family members, seems to not exist in this world at all. The only time when the past she comes out is during the release of Qi before taking the panacea. At this point, her body returns to its natural form, but each time she turns back into her former self. Ruan snuck into the dorm late at night and said he was sorry. He got into the wrong room and saw something he shouldn't have seen. She asked him if he was the pervert who had snuck into the girl's dorm, and how dare he do such a thing. Ruan told her that it was complicated. In any case, it bothered him that he had gotten into such an awkward situation. The girl was surprised and asked him what kind of nonsense he was talking about. She understood that she shouldn't give in to the influence of this madman. She needed to calm down. And if she makes a noise and people come running into the room, she'll be finished. And while she's trying to get her body back to normal, this guy will run away. And then there is only one way left for her. She immediately used the technique of eliminating an unwanted witness. She knew she had to shut this bastard up, and as quietly as possible, faster than the wind. The girl shouted at him to die and atone for his sins with his life. Ruan knew that this was a bit difficult. The girl immediately pulled out her sword and told him to shut up, and while spying on other people's secrets, he should be prepared for anything. Ruan told her that he was sorry about what happened today, but maybe they could just come to an agreement. The girl immediately waved her hand and told him to let the guy die. But Ruan grabbed her hand and said that he was asking for forgiveness. The girl realized that he had dodged and grabbed her wrist. Ruan told her that she was very strong, but the sword might break. He had urgent matters to attend to, so he would probably run away. But the girl didn't want to leave him and asked him where he was going. Ruan asked, how about taking a break and calming down? And surprisingly, she is quite strong. However, you can't just attack people so thoughtlessly. The girl was very angry and shouted back that he was an impudent pervert. Ruan told her that he apologized once again for today, and with that, he was leaving her. And don't worry, he wouldn't give up her secret even under torture. But the girl realized that this man knows acupuncture. And fortunately, acupuncture doesn't really work on her. He saw her true form. She must kill him. The girl came out of the window and asked where he was. Had he really jumped out and disappeared into thin air? But looking up, he saw that this guy was some kind of monster. In that direction, could it really be him? Did she realize that he was heading to the Ice Phoenix room? If not, then to the Sword Queen's hall. But no matter where he went, even if he didn't kill him, he would still die. The girl realized that she had to get her body back first and try to catch up with him. Ruan knew that if things went well, he would put an end to this. Judging by the itching on the back of his head, his blows were weak. Well, so much fat in any case, he could not properly see the acupuncture points in the current situation. Having risen to the point, he said that it was here, and it turns out that it was not the third floor, but the fourth. In any case, if they really wanted to share information, they would have said it more precisely. He knew he should have said this earlier. Half an hour ago, the guy told him that Tan Chul-gi had been secretly watching the club's leader, deputy leader, and Zahil Tai for a long time. However, this plan was proposed by Tai this afternoon. He said that he would go to Cheonmu Seogak, return the book, and greet the librarian girl. Ruan told his friend that he was crazy. Are they in cahoots with that librarian girl? Hui told him how he could come to such a conclusion. The guy replied that he had exams now, and there was no need to go there. So he was sure that a secret meeting had taken place there. Tae is no different from the Aesthetics Club, even though he is not a member. Ruan asked, didn't he read the points that were written on the back of the application for joining? If rumors about joining spread, he might be attacked by girls. And anyway, he doesn't know what the trap is, but they, except Ren, Junho, and Uncle Hong, are now connected. The guy said it was true. Everyone was overcome with excitement, and they made a bet. However, the girls know that they are coming, and he doesn't think the club leader will listen to them. Cheol-gi was the weakest, so he was forced to be a spy. After all, there is still an Ice Phoenix in Baekhyangwon. If anyone gets caught, it will be the end of everyone in the Aesthetics Club. Ruan said that didn't sound very good. It would be quite a hassle if they sent more people out. As it is, they only had to catch 4. Hui asked if he was going alone. Didn't he think it would be better to notify Baekhyangwon or the teachers in advance? The guy said no. They would all suffer in this situation. And now he understands why he came to talk to him. Apparently, they wanted to involve the 7th divine sword in this too. Ruan told him that on the contrary, it was even better. They would be witnesses later. And reporting everything to Baekhyangwon, that wasn't his style. And it's much more pleasant to punish yourself. First, you need to catch everyone, and then conduct a purification ritual in the name of a bright future. Ruan was even curious about what kind of traps they had prepared. According to Tan Chol-gi's information, 5 infiltration routes were set up to 5 different destinations, and through the laundry and drying room on the 2nd floor. The girl at this time told Doko's sister that she envied her figure. Doko was surprised and asked her what she was saying, but one of the girls said that she also wanted to be like her sister, or Sister Doko. That would be great. He understood one thing, that the common bathroom and changing room were on the basement floor. Baekhyangwon's second warehouse was on the second floor, where all sorts of things were stored. And the hardest place to get into is the Queen of Swords Hall. It is guarded by the hostile managers. And the last room of the Ice Phoenix, located on the third or fourth floor, since he didn't stumble upon it earlier, it turns out it's here. But in any case, there is someone inside. At this time, Rin caught several people who had broken into their dorm. At this time, Tae and his right hand were sneaking into the dormitory and saying that he was earth, stone, wood, and that he did not exist in this world. The second one said that he felt like a drop in the ocean, a breath of fresh air, the hostile managers, and no one would be able to find him. But suddenly someone snuck up behind them and asked them what they were doing there. The guys turned around and were surprised to see 25-year-old Chang Hong. The boys told him not to scream and duck. Doesn't he know this is Baekhyangwon territory? If the dorm managers see them, they're dead. Chang Hong asked in surprise, is this really true? He was just taking a walk. The guy told him not to lie. His dorm was on the other side, and they were now, so to speak, in the heart of the girls' dorm territory. And with such a walk, you can quickly go to the other world. And everything is obvious. Let him look at his clothes. He knew everything and got here secretly. But how did he know that they were here? The guy asked him if the seventh divine sword had really told him. Chung Hong replied that it was hard to explain, but he would say it this way. The seventh divine sword was as mute as a fish. He just figured it out himself. Chung Hong asked his friend, are they back yet? Where the hell are they at this hour? Where did he go? Is he up to something again? Hui replied that they had an agreement with him, so he couldn't tell him anything. He could only note that he had gone to hone his persuasion skills. And if he has no more questions, then let him go. Chung Hong replied that he was in trouble again. Did this bastard by any chance go to the girls' dorm? Chung Hong asked, so it's true? What a crazy person. And how did they know which dorm those perverts from Chilchelwi were in? Ren and Yun were also raided, but it didn't go that far. Was it because he decided not to stand aside? Hui was surprised and asked, Chilchelwi? Did the Dark Mother go to them too? Chung Hong asked, why not? When he returned, the two realized that their things were missing too. He also noticed that they tried to break down the door to his room. In some ways, he is even glad that the door and window to his room are so bad that no one has managed to open them. And yet here he is telling this story. Heron is taking care of the sick Yun, so he came alone. Hen replied that he apologized to 3 people because of him. After the mission, he would definitely find the Dark Mother, and she would pay for it. Chung Hong said that the guy said earlier that he would find her after, but then Ruan didn't go to the girls' dorm because of Chilchelwei. Then why did he go there? What was his purpose? Hui replied that he couldn't tell him that, and he asked for forgiveness. Chung Hong said that he understood everything. However, at this time, it is impossible to get into the female dormitory. In this situation, there is only one place left. And then Chang Hong said that it was Beck, Yang, Guan. Did brother go to this place to hone his persuasion skills? Could there be something else hidden behind the word persuasion? Hui replied that he couldn't tell him anything more, but his intentions were pure. Otherwise, he would have stopped him. Chung Hong immediately turned around and replied that it seemed so. Every day was like a war. Hui asked him if he was really going to go there to help him, and if he did it in a hurry, only they would get in his way. Chung Hong replied that he couldn't leave it like that. Let him not worry about that idiot. It would be better for him if he went to bed. Chung Hong thought that if this madman was caught, he would never come to his aid. But since he was covered by the 7th divine sword, it meant that there was something behind it. Chung Hong asked the boys what they were doing here, and he has one affliction. He starts raising his voice when he is bursting with curiosity, so he recommends that they tell everything right now. Oh asked him if he was crazy. If so, they would all be caught here. La also said that everything was right, and since he was here, he better help Ruan catch these idiots. And then O decided that he needed to tell him everything. After a long story, Chung Hong knocked them both out and left them lying in the forest. Chung Hong stood in front of the dorm and thought he had put the two to sleep. But Tai had the key to Baekhyangwon. He was able to find out about Nanhwa Bakmujin somehow. Nanhwa Bakmujin is rebuilt every 6 months. Did anyone other than the dorm managers know a way to bypass the system this semester? But who in their right mind would leak information about the time and blind spots? In any case, there was about an hour left before the next blind spot appeared. How could he pull it off and remain undetected, he thought. But of all those who broke in or who reported a break-in, and of the 12 dormitory managers, he only knows 2. And they are divided into 2 groups and work in shifts. So at this time, there will be 6 people. The remaining 4 are at the Hall of the Queen of Swords. But suddenly someone came up to him and asked him who he was to ask about this. He said that he knew about the blind spots of the system. Did the head himself let him in on today's plans? Chung Hong replied that he didn't even know, and he didn't think that the head knew that he was here. And immediately turning his palm, he said that this is who he is. The guards asked if this was the mark of the divine phoenix. He was the one sent to monitor the Cheonmu Academy. Chung Hong said that from what they said, it seemed like they knew that outsiders had invaded their territory, but they pretended not to notice. Is there a special reason for that? The warrior replied that 4 rats had entered the building, but then they had seen someone else. 3 managers remained at the Queen of Swords Hall. The rest were watching the rats. Chung Hong said he understood everything and asked if he could take any of these perverts. He's sorry, of course, but he can't tell them more because of his mission. But if they don't allow it, things could get out of control. He thought that if the whole club of aesthetics lovers was involved, then the matter would take on a more northern character. And if there were 4 of them, and since his brother was here, then there were 5. Ruan was near the window at the time and thought that if he hadn't stumbled upon it before, it must be here. And in any case, there was someone inside. And if he opens the window next, he will most likely be taken for a pervert, and coughing beforehand looks very old-fashioned. And then Ruan decided that he would just knock. But Rin was already prepared and immediately took up her blade. Ruan immediately rushed inside and asked if this was too warm a greeting for someone who wanted to knock politely. Rin knew it would have been easy to pierce him, but her sword was caught, and suddenly Ruan felt her draw her sword. He was being careful, but could he have overdone it? And then Rin saw him and said it was him. Ruan came into the room and said it was a great night, wasn't it? And she found out who he was? Ruan asked if she realized it because of his beauty that even a mask couldn't hide, or because of his beautiful voice that couldn't be forgotten. Rin knew there was only one person whose thoughts he couldn't read. She held out her blade and said that a person could be recognized by their words and actions. She asked the reason for such an inappropriate appearance. Ruan replied that he admitted that the method he had chosen was not very successful. However, there was a reason for it. And the reason is that if he doesn't take it, then they will all fall into someone's trap. And then she remembered how that guy said that he came here not because he really wanted to. And everything is wrong. He was wrong. Rin asked the boy if he could swear that he came here without any evil intent. Ruan replied that of course he did, and he swears by the honor of his respected Sabu. If there is even a drop of falsehood in his words, then Sabu will receive heavenly punishment. Rin said that this was too much. In any case, she would give him a chance this time. Ruan asked, why did she trust him so easily? And then Rin started waving her sword and said that apparently she was wrong, but Ruan had already started running and said that it couldn't be. Ruan grabbed the guy who was tied up by the hem and thanked her for the gift, and said that he would wait for the next meeting. As he was going down, Chung Hong saw that it was his brother. Ruan immediately asked him what he was doing here. Chung Hong replied that he didn't know, and that's why he was asking. Chung Hong asked him where the guy jumped out from. Did he come out of the Ice Phoenix in Dakin Bong's room? Suddenly, someone started knocking on the door and asking Sister Nai Doko to open the door for her. Rin opened the door and the girl asked her if she was alone. And where did Doko's sister disappear to? And she asked if the pervert had come into her room. The girl saw right away that Rin was beautiful. No matter what her mood or the situation, she was beautiful. She would probably be thin and beautiful until she died. But that wasn't the problem now. Rin replied that Doko's sister was in the bathroom right now, and there should have been a note left on her door. The girl replied that it must have fallen on the floor and she noticed it too late. A guy burst into her room and then disappeared. Of course, he didn't have time to do anything to her. The girl understood that the rat had to pay for being a witness to someone else's secret. She had to catch this bastard as soon as possible and kill him. And after that, the girl said that he went towards her room. Would she mind if she took a look around? Rin immediately invited her. But she also understood that that scoundrel knew how to hide well. Maybe he was still here. This was the room of the first beauty, so he simply had to be here. The girl came in and said she was sorry for the intrusion, and suddenly asked where their beds were, and what was that hole in the window. Rin replied that she was trying to scare away the one who was trying to climb in through the window. As for the beds and other things, her sister didn't want men's eyes to desecrate her things, so they moved everything to the next room beforehand. The girl said that then she killed him? Then where is the body? Rin answered that he went to the other invaders. That is, to the bathroom, the laundry room, or the warehouse. The girl immediately went to the bathroom and said that this scoundrel went there and invited her to go and kill him too. Chung Hong asked the guy where he just jumped out from. Just don't tell him that he jumped out of the Ice Phoenix and Dak and Bong room. Ruan asked. Then the fierce lady with the eye patch also lives there? He didn't know since he only met the Phoenix. Chung Hong asked, did he really not do anything weird? And so the Ice Phoenix just let him go? Ruan asked in response, who did he take him for? And immediately threw the boy's body into his hands and told him to take it, and the lady voluntarily handed it over. Chung Hong asked him in surprise, how could he just throw a person at him? If he hadn't caught him, he would have fallen down. Chung Hong wondered why she was always paying special attention to this bastard. Did she really like him? This was a problem that could no longer be ignored. Ruan said that there was one, and to be more efficient, they should split up. He would take care of the warehouse and laundry and let Chung Hong take care of the bathroom. What would he say to that? Chung Hong replied that he shouldn't dump the most dangerous place on him, as if he was doing him a favor. He wanted him to go there with this dead weight and catch another one? Does he want him dead? And if they notice him, he won't be able to pick up the bones. And on the tombstone they'll write, here lies a pervert. Ruan asked, should he go to the bathroom then? Chung Hong replied that he wouldn't let him go alone. He'd do something else. Ruan immediately called him a coward and said that going together was too much trouble. Chung Hong replied that they were talking about the bathroom. To such a dangerous place, only the two of them. One to rescue the perverts, the other to defend himself. He understood that he couldn't trust everything to someone who only caused him trouble, and he needed to be watched like a hawk. At this time in the forest, two guys came to their senses and asked the stranger who he was. How did he get here? And was it really the 25-year-old new guy who called him? But the stranger laughed and wished them good night. Heron knew that Hui hadn't told him anything. However, he decided that something interesting was going on here, so he came. Heron told him that he understood, and if it was a secret, that meant they were going to a dangerous place. And where exactly? A warehouse with valuables? A room with machinery? Or a place where they were not allowed to go? Hui replied that he wasn't going to answer any questions. He should just get out of his sight. Heron apologized right away and said that he was talking nonsense when he was worried. And since it was just the two of them, there was nothing to worry about, unless they went to a girl's dorm instead. Heron told the guys that Ruan and Chung Hong had abandoned him and gone to have fun in the girls' dorm, so it was no surprise that he was here too. Oh asked him in surprise, who told him that they came here to have fun. It was not so. And so when they told him not to go, he pressed their shui-shu points and left. Blind spots are updated every hour. If he doesn't know how to get to Baekhyun, he won't be able to enter. Otherwise, there is a chance of getting trapped or run into by the dorm manager. Oh asked him why he put the hood on. Was he going to go there? He was experiencing some kind of deja vu. Was he really going to knock him out and leave him here too? Heron replied that of course not. If he fell asleep in such a place, he would have back problems later, or even freeze to death. That was very bad. Heron immediately took his 2 fingers and said that this is how it should be done. He would be able to print out his acupuncture points if he controlled the QI flow correctly. He would look around a bit and come back to check. Heron knew that the Hall of the Queen of Swords, it would take him some time to learn the blind spots. If he went there, he should remember this. Heron immediately headed to the dormitory. But at this time, not only the girl was also running, and suddenly, because of the wind, she lost her scarf. They stopped and looked around and saw that there was no one here, and they had to move on. Otherwise, they would miss the most interesting part. The girl came to the dormitory and began to look around. Heron saw the same and realized that he was using 64 heavenly forms here. So now the gates are open in the northeast, and in an hour they will remain in the southeast. And in his head he thanked his sister, whose name he does not know. At that time, Tay was on top and saw this white, jade-like skin in front of him. He envied her so much. And why does she hide such beauty with clothes? She is so moist and charming energy. He is so close to his goal. And if he can cut this sex silently, he'll be able to see something fantastic. Doko understood at that moment that they were definitely somewhere up there. It would be great if they showed up sooner. But suddenly one of the students said that she was tired and wanted to leave here as soon as possible. The girl answered that it was really time for them to go to bed. But suddenly she came and said that she heard here, from a sister Na, that the perverts never showed up. Maybe they are just indulging in swords all over the ceiling? Dako replied that then everything would have to be repaired. It would not be very convenient. And then she asked where her sister had disappeared to. The girl replied that she thought she would go with her, but her sister went to the warehouse. And suddenly they heard something, and all together decided to pierce the ceiling with their swords. Doko knew that if they continued, the ceiling would collapse. But the girl was also sure that it was that guy, and she decided to break all his bones. The girl came down and told everyone to immediately step aside. But at that moment, Ruan was wondering what his uncle was doing. And could he speed up? Chang Hong told him to push him from the front, and he thinks that fat ass is stuck. And luckily, he left all his stuff outside. And how did he get in here with that body? Suddenly, the girls showed up and said they were fucking perverts, and they gave them their word that they would be killed. Ruan looked and replied that the situation was getting worse. Silence behind, swords in front. Then all he had to do was go down and take the fight. The girl immediately started screaming that he was a pervert and ordered her people to kill him. Changhong realized that this noise was probably a woodpecker that had just jumped into the bathroom, which was full of female students. Changhong asked him if he wanted to turn the whole school upside down and immediately told him to shut his mouth and answered him using the voice transmission technique and let him tighten his mask. To avoid being recognized, he doesn't need to show off his techniques, especially the one where he blocks weapons with his bare hands. Ruan asked in surprise, "Is that how it turns out? And can you hide his beauty with a mask? Girls recognize him anyway." Changhong asked him what he was saying. What the mask couldn't hide was his manners and speech. Ruan replied that his perfect manners and speech were a problem, but in any case, he needed to defend himself. And this fierce lady has fallen in love with him. It looks like she will remember him for the rest of her life. Changhong told him to stop talking and run away quickly and quietly. He would run away too as soon as he pushed this pig out. Changhong saw right away that he was betting, and that pig was using the bone compression technique to get in. I'll have to forcefully wake him up. Changhong immediately began to hit Tay's body with his fists. The others immediately saw that there were more people up there. Dako told them that she would get up herself, and immediately pulled out her sword. But when she got up, she said that they had escaped. Doko said she would follow them, but the other girls told her they would go with her. But the other girl stayed downstairs and was ready to kill the guy for knowing her secret. Ruan knew that because of the voice that was like the jingling of jade beads, he couldn't talk to her, lest he be recognized. But he had already talked to this lady, so it wouldn't make a difference. And it seems to him that the uncle has already pulled out the fat man. The girl immediately used the slippery as an eel and shouted that she must kill him. Ruan immediately turned to her after her blow. The girl was surprised and asked how this could be, and she started screaming that he was a crazy pervert, and what did he just call her? Ruan asked her if she liked the chubby one or the giantess better. He was a little busy, but could she tell him where the exit was? It was for her own safety. He immediately thought that he needed to get away from these perverts as quickly as possible. The girl realized that he was threatening to reveal her secret to everyone, and how dare he do such a thing. The girl pounced on him and said she wouldn't show. Ruan replied that he thought so, that asking was pointless. Suddenly the siren went off. Everyone immediately became alert. The girl said that it was the sound of an emergency call from the hall of the Queen of Swords. The boss said that half stays, half returns. Ruan asked right away, "Where is it all?" The girl immediately looked into the guy's face and together with the attack pounced on him and asked, "Is he thinking of running away?" But Ruan took his legs in his hands and ran away. At the end, he said that it was nice to meet you, and he would see the squeeze again too. The girl got very angry after these words and shouted back at him that he was a pervert, and she would definitely catch him. Tay was on the roof at the time and said that he was beaten and thrown out, threatening his Fabergé. How did this old first year even know about this place? Chung Hong immediately pressed his points and realized that there was no need for the compression technique now, and he swelled up again. And what was that sound from the Hall of the Queen of Swords? It wasn't because of that psycho, and suddenly his head started to split. But first he would hide these youngsters in the bushes. But at that moment the girls were already on the roof and shouted that he was a pervert. And not just one, there were several of them. Doko told him to stay put or he would regret it. Chung Hong said that he thought that one of the 12 dorm commandants was behind him. Since the Sword Queen's Hall was invaded now, he wanted to get rid of these guys quickly and sort out the situation. But suddenly a woman appeared before them and said that he had come to take away the intruders. They had nothing to worry about. Or should they be reminded of the rules for invading the Queen of Swords' Hall? Let them return to their seats immediately. The girls replied that they understood the order. Doko also said that they would go to the dorm immediately. Chung Hong took everyone and suddenly felt strange. He wondered if the perverts from the club for young girls were interested in the Hall of the Queen of Swords. At this time, Heron was fighting with the enemies, and he tried to repel all attacks in different ways. He suddenly felt something surprising because he saw something new, and it was so exciting. And this is certainly a great technique for secret penetration. But where are the techniques that the Queen of Swords left here? He's already been going around for the second time, but he still hasn't found out. To capture his uselessness for the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, this is just what he needs. And suddenly he hoped that the commotion here had helped Ruan and Chung Hong. And now he had to think about what to say next. And suddenly he decided that it was time for him to leave. But before leaving, he was very surprised because a huge number of girls lined up in front of him. He knew he had to get out now without being noticed, and so he immediately used the thunder bomb. After the big explosion, he immediately flew out of the roof and knew that this was Ruan's style. The girl said she heard a pervert had appeared in the laundry room. Can we just leave him there? The second girl replied that there was nothing to be done. General convocation. And does he hear how loud it is? The eldest answered that it was true. They had moved all the clothes anyway. The Hall of the Queen of Swords was more important. But Tay was a little smarter and was underground. He was glad that he thought of giving up, but it was very good that he waited, and he will be the winner. But at that moment, Ruan found him and pounced on him from behind, immediately hitting him in the back with his elbow. At this time, someone in the storeroom said that he was wondering why everyone was called to the Hall of the Queen of Swords. And did someone from the Club of Lovers of Young Girls really decide to sneak in there? The guy answered that it was unlikely and offered to plant it as evidence. The girl said that she only managed to find a lapel with the emblem of Hwasun School. Who would even believe that this idiot burst in here? And from Biruan, they only managed to steal a piece of paper with scribbles and some clothes. They are seriously lacking any solid evidence. The guy replied that it was good that at least that was there. The poor guy didn't even have any personal belongings, and they couldn't even open the door to the old man's room. The girl said it was time to go to the Queen of Swords Hall, otherwise it would be suspicious. The guy replied that he would too. But suddenly someone came and said that they were going to the Hall of the Queen of Swords, and she decided to say that they would go together. Rin said that she heard very well what they were talking about here, and there is no need to hide or pretend anything. The leader said that the first group should catch up with the invaders on the roof, and the second group should track them down using the formation of 60 envoys of the Heavenly Army. In this case, you need to be careful. He can use a thunder bomb. And the third and fourth, fifth and sixth groups must search the floors of the Purity Pavilion. The girls started to panic, and one of them said that she was in the second group and it was time for her to go. They said, a thunder bomb. But first, Doko thought it was weird. It didn't look like the perverts from the club that loved young girls. And why would they need the Hall of the Queen of Swords? But then she thought, where did her little sister go? Doko suddenly saw Li Jin Sol and asked her why she was here. And then Sol told her not to scream so loudly. Doko grabbed her and asked who taught her that. Sol apologized and said she came to help. And when she ran into their room, the fight was already over and no one was there. And then she thought there was a fight in the bathroom and went there. But someone ran past her like a fly. And finally she's here. Sol asked Doko's sister if she could join her group. Sister replied that she didn't even regret it. She would tell the commandants to scold her. Now let her go back. Sol immediately started crying and said that she still hadn't even taken out her sword. Even if she got scolded later, she wanted to be with the most adorable little sister in the world, Doko. Doko immediately told her that no, and that sucking up was useless. Even if she and her sister tracked the intruders to the Queen of Swords Hall, the main group was guarding it. Saul was upset and said that it meant it was impossible, and she immediately asked where Rin's little sister had disappeared to. Doko asked her why she needed her. Did she want to persuade her? Doko wondered why her sister was still not here. She had told her that she was going to the warehouse. Maybe something had happened. But suddenly someone shouted that there were intruders. The girl said that the Ice Phoenix and Mrs. Guyan must have caught him. But one of them asked, "Isn't it strange? Why Mrs. Guyan?" And suddenly Rin said that she came to report to the commandants. Everyone was very surprised at this moment. Rin said that she had captured the two conspirators. Guyan Jin leaked information on how to enter the Purity Pavilion, and Heil Tai incited the men to invade and led the expedition. At this time in the forest, the boy brought the boy he pulled out of the dorm to his senses. Suddenly, the boy opened his eyes and started screaming and begging the Ice Phoenix not to kill him. But Chang Hong closed his mouth and asked, "What does he want? To kill them? They are hiding outside the Purity Pavilion." Chang Hong asked him why he mentioned the Ice Phoenix. What was wrong with her? The guy replied that nothing. She looked at him with her incredibly beautiful eyes. The boy suddenly burst into tears and began to ask why they were born as such insignificant creatures. Chang Hong immediately hit him and asked why he called him worthless. Let him come to his senses immediately. From the blow, the guy collided with Tai and asked, "Is this pig the head of the club?" "Where is he from?" Chang Hong asked. "What do you mean, where from?" "Let him look around." The old newbie dragged the two of them on his back. The guy was very surprised and asked how he managed to raise his head and run away with him here. It seems that when he made a mistake with the elixir, it replaced youth with superpower. What happened to those two? The guy replied that Sung Jin was swearing using voice transmission technology. The old rookie had knocked him out for no reason before. Chun Hong told him that if he thought about it for a while, he would understand. They had to leave quickly. The girls could show up at any moment. O answered him immediately to shut his mouth. Is he going to use acupuncture again? What's wrong with them? Have they become so brazen? And especially him. He feels like his father is 25 years old. In a moment, Chung Hong thought he was the one who was watching them from the very beginning. But how did Ren get away? He knew it. He lied to him. At that moment, Chung Hong was thinking hard about how he could fix everything again. He needed to catch them, but he didn't want to. Maybe he should give up and resign. O suddenly saw his face and asked what was happening to him. Why was he crying? But he simply said that he had grown like a flower. But suddenly Ruan came and asked if everything was there. Heron also said that his brother Chung Hong was really there. Chung Hong immediately asked him why he was here. Did he and that idiot really destroy the Sword Queen's Hall together? And without masks? Rowan asked in surprise. The Hall of the Sword Queen? Why did he have to be there? Heron replied that he met Ruan while wandering around here and there. At that moment, Ruan ran out of the dorm. But at that moment, he saw Heron and asked, "Is he here too?" Heron replied that brother Chung Hong had come to have fun and he had tagged along. He was wandering around and the girls found him. He had to run away through the roof. Ruan threw the guy at him and asked, "Him too?" The ladies here are a bit hot-tempered, but it's time for them to run on. Heron agreed and asked him why he needed this guy. Ruan asked him if he was wandering around and told him to think of him as a fee for showing him the way. Ruan said that this is how it all happened, and they took off their masks just now and let him stop grumbling. Chung Hong asked, "Are they making fun of him?" On the day of joining, they made him do everything, saying that they didn't know about the 64 hexagrams. But if they are so ignorant, how could they get in and out of here? Heron replied that he had noticed a girl with twin swords and had followed her. And on the way back, he had met Ruan. Lucky, lucky indeed. Ruan said he had seen this road before, so he entered following the clues. And the way back was no different. And isn't that something you recognize at first sight? Isn't it the same for everyone else? Chung Hong replied that he was very smooth. Are you trying to play the genius? Or the boy finally decided to cheat him. Who then burst into the hall of the Queen of Swords? Ruan replied that it was true. Wasn't Heron in the Sword Queen's hall? He came out after destroying the roofs, right? Heron replied that he thought his brother had gone there. After all, there should be jewels in the hall of the Queen of Swords, and he loves expensive things. Ruan asked him, who doesn't love? Was there something there? Heron asked, were there many girls? As he took a step, they chased after him. He couldn't even see. Of the valuables, there was a thunder bomb. Changhong looked at them and thought they were idiots. And he saw that especially these three. It almost reached the heavenly demon pavilion, and here again some nonsense. O grabbed his head and asked the guy, "Did he detonate a thunder bomb in the Hall of the Queen of Swords? This is a rebellion. This is a riot. What did they do?" La asked, "Iltai won't get caught, will they? The matter with the Queen of Swords Hall won't affect them, will it?" The guy asked, "How is that possible? We need to run faster." Changhong said that after all, he wasn't from the club that loved young girls. If he was caught, they would say that he had nothing to do with it. They would finish here and go to their rooms. And then Ruan asked them if they were done chatting yet, and if he could speak up. The guy asked right away, "Why is it so scary? Why is he doing this to them?" La said that he is scared too. It is more scary than when the Ice Phoenix looked at him. Changhong asked, "What does he think? Will those two listen to him?" "All the windows and doors are closed, but it's better not to make too much noise." Heron laughed and said that he knew that Brother Chang was the best. "Ruan, he seems ready too. And let him wake up. He will light the fire now." Ruan picked up the dummy and asked, "How could this be?" Tay was also saying at that moment that if they dared to do something to him and the chief, they would be in trouble. And he told the chief that he couldn't speak. They were doing acupuncture. Tay stopped him and replied that that wasn't the problem. And now in his hands, Tay immediately turned around and asked, "Is this Miss Ruan?" Tay immediately began to tell them to listen to him. Tay said that this talented girl from the south, Miss Ruan, was painted by the hand of a master as a high-class treasure. She even has hair stolen from a real lady. Tay asked, "Aren't they sinless? Is it okay to do that to her?" "Throw her into the fire." Ruan told them not to worry. He didn't even think about it. And it takes a long time to burn it. And they have so many things to do. And then he broke it into two pieces. The leader and Tai were very surprised and started screaming in anger. Ruan said that for the sake of a bright tomorrow, he suggested that they say goodbye to all of this. And the traces of the dark past will be broken, burned, dissolved. Tay begged him to stop, and he was wrong, so let him leave them alone. The young girls' lovers club will change. Tay also said that the guy's a heartless creature, and let him hit him rather than break the art. Heron said mockingly that the little bastard wanted Ruan to hit him, and it seemed like he had never been hit properly. But Changhong replied that Tai seemed to be from a gang of beggars. And by the way, he agreed. It would have been better not to say such words to him. Ruan asked in surprise, "Does a member of a beggar gang have such a hobby?" "It's certainly peculiar." And suddenly he picked up the ball and asked, "What is it? Is there really something inside? Or is it some kind of expensive thing?" Tay looked and replied that this was an earth sphere, obtained with the sweat and blood of their club. It was a priceless treasure. Let him let it go. Tay also said that this is a masterpiece created from handfuls of earth, that they, risking their lives, stole from the homes of dozens of beauties. Ruan broke it and said that as he thought, it was absolutely useless crap. But luckily there was something that could be useful from it. And suddenly he decided to throw it on the floor like in bowling. Tay was dumbfounded and shouted at him not to do it. But instead of pins, he had girls from the dorm under his performance. And in that moment, this ball broke into small pieces. Heron clapped and said that it was a great strike. "And next up will probably be Brother Chanhong?" Chanhong replied that yes, these two are already on the edge. And will these sissies hold out until the end? Ruan looked and said that it was time to move on to the next point, and asked the guys if they were finished. At this time, O came and asked that they should have taken out everything that was hidden, right? The boys said that they are devils incarnate and cruel scoundrels, but they are very afraid to object to their wishes. Ruan immediately ran up and started throwing everything out and examining it. He asked why he hated trash. He didn't care about it, and let the devil add some fire. Tay suddenly saw the fire and shouted that they were burning them. Ruan shouted at him to have Ren add some more flame. He begged and pleaded with them to stop doing this. But suddenly Tai saw that the leader had become ill and shouted at him to come to his senses. Ruan suddenly said that the main part of the cleaning was already over. And how did they feel? Tai answered him that he was a pure demon, and asked him what he was going to do when he had already burned, broken, and drowned all their treasures. Ruan asked him what he was talking about. He still had two serious matters to attend to, and then Tai realized that things would be worse than they were now. The head came out in front of the academy and said what ugly people they were, and on his shift. They just had to be seized. The servant replied that there was a mark of the celestial phoenix on one of their hands, so they had to pretend they hadn't seen anything at first. Even the 12 commandants of the Purity Pavilion didn't touch them. The leader said that it was necessary to separate the Academy of Heavenly Warriors from the Alliance, and what has been happening in the Academy lately, and everything is so confusing. Unexpectedly in the morning, one of the students asked the others if they were going to the club early in the morning. But the students started laughing and told the newbies to listen, because they didn't know. Something big happened yesterday. He was interested in the result, so he came running. But when they entered the office, everyone was surprised, and someone asked, "What's going on?" It was as if a hurricane had hit the club room at night. But when they looked around, they saw that their treasures were all broken and burned, and there were still corpses in the corner, but they looked like they were still alive. Wasn't that the leader and his deputy? But they were all beaten, and Tay told them in a slow voice to read what was written on the back. At this time, Ruan came to his room and said that he congratulated. Hui asked him in surprise, what did he say? In fact, it hasn't even been 3 days since he joined the club, and he's already the head? This is some kind of mistake. Heron laughed and replied that he himself wished it were a mistake, but it was true. But Chankin said that in general, such issues are decided by voting. But all those who disagreed were beaten. That is, they would have been persuaded. So he is the leader. Ruan told him not to worry, that it was nothing complicated, and told him to take care of them. But at this time, in the headquarters of the Heavenly Alliance, in the Tower of Tranquility, the elder said that he was embarrassed by the news he received, but asked for his understanding. The Queen of Swords Hall was the work of an important guest, and could he ask him to turn a blind eye to it? The leader laughed and replied that he had done nothing but make a hole in the roof, so this time he would let it slide. But even though the guest is the prince of the Heavenly Demon Pavilion, he entered the academy. It would be more correct to treat him as an ordinary student. Also, if he doesn't mind, could he get a report on the shadow with the mark of the celestial phoenix, so that he can cooperate more closely with him to prevent situations like yesterday? The elder laughed and realized that it was not that simple. White Shadow is one of the important organs of the Celestial Warrior Academy, but the Shadowless Squad is an unofficial organization of the Celestial Alliance. And here he is, forced to reveal the identity of the head of the Shadowless Squad. And right before his eyes it is. Since this is just a request in connection with the incidents in the Hall of the Queen of Swords, he will simply ignore it. The elder said that he agreed about the dear guest. But the White Shadow has its own rules, so this issue needs to be discussed with the leader. The head replied that he understood everything and trusted him and would take control of everything at the academy. The elder smiled and said that it was under control. The chief also thought it was a joke and told him not to worry. But the chief said the 2 arrested in the Purity Pavilion would be expelled. The club involved has been suspended for a month. During the month, there will be unexpected inspections of the dormitory at night. Unscheduled exams will be held during the month. Students who fail an exam or violate the rules will be suspended from all activities this semester. In addition, expulsion from the academy is possible. But the elder at this time became very angry upon receiving the information and asked why everything was going like this. Hyun replied that he was glad that at least the information about their circle hadn't been leaked. He thought it was better not to bother him for now. From now on, it would be better to focus on preparing for the Three Saint Masters Festival. With the return of the Blue Dragon team, didn't he come back too? The elder replied that yes, doing something like that was not in the spirit of the head of their circle. As soon as he returned, he went to a closed 10-day training session. Hung said that they still have to prepare for the match with the Red Falcons team. He always goes straight ahead. The word defeat is not in his vocabulary. But Master Quack was conducting his training and asked his students what is the most important thing for a warrior? It is not victory or defeat, it is overcoming oneself. But not in their case. At all costs, let them defeat the Blue Dragon team. And if they lose to them, the gates of hell will open for both of them. And if they lose, there will be no tomorrow. Did they understand the order given? Asked Quack. The students all answered loudly and unanimously that they understood everything perfectly, and they would do everything to defeat the Blues. After a hard training session, everyone was tired and the boys said that their whole body was like cotton wool today. But one of the students said that when the sky is red, Sejo appears. But suddenly Jiren asked, maybe the old man was offended by the Blue Dragon team for something? After those words, he became so furious. Namgung said yes, but didn't they still want to become stronger? Chan said he just didn't want to lose. After all, as he said, if they lose, tomorrow will not come for them. But the disciple answered that it was serious and asked, why is Brother Yun shaking so much? Saul also said that everything is correct. Even if they lose to the Blue Dragon team, the crazy Shujo Junho won't kill them, will he? But Yun replied that he didn't know why, but he was just scared for some reason. He would like to help, but he was nothing but a worry. Chang approached him and asked if that was true. He was grateful for his words, but was he causing trouble? Hadn't he been holding up much better lately? But Hawk asked in surprise, is it better? And the fact that he faints every day is because he doesn't eat properly. And he suggested going and having a snack together. Yun thanked him and replied that he had already promised his friends from the dorm that he would go to the canteen with them today. But could he join tomorrow or the day after? The student asked, why not? The food in the building where the Red Falcons team lives is excellent. But the guy immediately asked him, did he call those guys who hang around here every day friends? But they look like they are older, not the same age. Yun laughed and replied that they were a little strange, but kind and wonderful people. If they met them, they would definitely like them. At the table, Yun began to tell his guys that all the guys from the Red Falcon team are good people. Even though the training is hard, they take good care of him. Ruan asked in surprise, huh? Chung Hong said that he looked at his hands and realized how hard the training was. Heron asked him how he was. Should he feed him? The harder the training, the better he needed to eat. Yun shouted no and replied that he could eat himself. But at that moment, his hands began to shake. Heron offered him again to feed him. Chung Hong suddenly started saying that he took the meat broth but couldn't eat it. If this continues, only a shadow will remain of him. But Yun again told him that no, he was fine. Training was a great chance for him. He couldn't miss it. Of course, he still can't use the plum blossom sword properly, but someday he also wants to become like the guys from the Red Falcon team. Ruan shouted at this time and asked what he was talking about. What kind of stupid wish was this? Why would he want to become like those idiots? He should want to become like a handsome guy like him. Of course, it's impossible to become like that, but he's much better as a target. And how? What does he think? Yun said no, so he was telling him to give up. Ruan said he knew that such a goal was difficult to achieve. But wasn't he giving up too quickly? He should at least try. But then Chang Hong stepped in and told him to stop, and asked him if he thought he might have gone to a couple of lessons in sound technique and could now sing like a nightingale. If his words reached them, the Red Falcons team might come for him. Ruan thought about it and replied that it wasn't that bad. The club for lovers of young girls was decided, and before the festival of the Three Holy Masters, they needed to gather some energy. Chang Hong asked right away if he had extra time. Maybe he could prepare for the unscheduled exams. And if he plans something again, he himself will report it to the commandants. And everything will end badly for him. Late at night, Kwok was lying in his room and sleeping. But suddenly someone pulled the blanket off him, and he immediately jumped up. But it was Ryun who immediately called him carefree and asked him, what if he had a fire? Kwok asked him why he showed up at night. Aren't there checks at night in the student dormitory? And how did he get here? Ruan replied that the check was only done once a night. That was it for today, and there was no need to worry. And did Sabu need a reason to visit his student? Kwok replied that he had a personal life too. But no, he was fine. Rian asked him how things were with the Red Falcon team. Is he teaching well? And he was just about to read what he had written with such diligence. But then he took the candles and looked at all the inscriptions he had left on the sheets. On the sheet he wrote that the brother and sister were from the Namgung clan. The same age. Swordsmen. One was stupid, the other was capricious, more evil. Of course, it's a strange atmosphere. They're dating. Unforgivable. Separate training. But the girl might snitch, you have to be careful. Ruan said that was a pretty accurate definition. Kwok thought about it and replied that he didn't even know how to explain it. In any case, the problem is this allergy sufferer. He's going to win, and this asshole is ruining everything. Luckily, he now uses the whirling dance of the willow sword, which doesn't smell so much like plum blossoms. After all, he wants to live. Rowan asked in surprise, but how is that possible? But he won't advance like that. He needs to be tougher to push him beyond the level of the fragrant sword. Kwok said, what nonsense. He would rather die than be on the same level as the elders of Hwasun school. Ruan said that they forgot to ask him. He would finish what he started. Master, have you forgotten? I told you that under the threat of death, you can overcome your own boundaries. Kwok thought about it and said that it was true. When he thought he was going to die, he used the plum blossom sword. Ruan replied that he told me the kid would change. What about the rest of the Red Falcon team? Surely they wouldn't lose to someone like the Blue Grape team? Kvak said that while they were in his hands, this would not happen. And even they had a good base, he noted. No matter how difficult the training is, they cope well. And some of them wear bracelets on their arms and legs. In general, he looks after them every day as he should. So there is no need to worry. Ruan replied that they are his older brothers and sisters. With his help, they develop even more. Kwok asked in surprise, "Who is whose older brother here?" Ryan asked him why he was so surprised. He had already told him about it. And since they became his students earlier, it means they are his older brothers and sisters. Ruan asked if it would be possible to slightly change the composition from tomorrow. Let him gather the kids from the Red Falcon team tomorrow at the Cox Hour from 5 to 7 p.m. Let them decide where and pass on the information to him. Kwok asked in surprise, "Why is this?" Ruan replied that it seemed like it was time for Sabu to take care of his students. Let them know a different side of him. No need to think about anything, just let him introduce it to the class. He wants to make sure his students can handle these blue grapes. Kwok said he agreed. Teams of blue dragons led by the snowman. They must bend them, tomorrow at the Rooster's Hour, and meet on the training ground. Ruan replied that he understood everything and he was waiting for tomorrow. The next day, Kwok met his students and said mockingly that they were all here. But suddenly Chan whispered that it was some weak training. And why didn't Yoon come? Namgung replied that he didn't know. And for some reason he had a bad feeling. Sewell asked, "Why is the crazy master laughing? Something is wrong." Kwok said that he wanted to introduce them to someone today. And then Ryan burst in and said that he welcomed everyone and was glad to meet them. Ruan immediately introduced himself and said that he entered the Celestial Warrior Academy this year, and he is their senior classmate. Hawk was very surprised and asked what he was muttering about, and was this newbie on henbane. But Hawk couldn't resist and pointed his finger and started shouting at him that he was a crazy idiot. Hawk picked up a stick and asked, "Is he completely nuts? Where did he get this from?" And judging by the nonsense he's spouting, his self-confidence is off the charts. Does he think he can beat him to death? Sean told him to stop and asked the others if they could see it. Ruan told the guy, of course. Chan immediately said that he had ankle bracelets. Hawk got angry at this point and replied that he was an arrogant bastard. Chan said it was a strange appearance. Namgung also said it was definitely familiar. Jiren also looked and told Hawk to stop, and unwanted thoughts lead to unwanted futures. These are bracelets, just bracelets. But then a guy entered the fight and said that now they will see who will win. Hack also supported and wants to show this psycho from the well how wide the world is. Ruan asked, "Is that it?" The two of them. "Let them attack." Jiren saw his hand and said that it was indeed a dragon bracelet. The girl asked her, "Is it true? Maybe he is just a member of society with a bracelet?" Jiren answered that no. It is a terrible bracelet. She has never seen this newcomer to society. Namgung shouted at them to stop immediately. He turned around and asked him, "Is he serious? Does he want to separate them? And aren't they from the Red Falcons team?" Hack said it was right, Commander. He should beat up that idiot first. Hawk immediately used the divine step of dance, shadows 18 palms against him, and was ready to finish off this upstart. He himself was surprised that the guy used 18 palms of the dragon's descent. He thought that Hawk decided to kill him. Maybe he was a slob so that he would not interfere. But Ruan didn't even start to run away and responded with a Drac descent attack. And at the moment of impact, he asked what kind of words he said. Ruan hit him hard enough to make him feel the pain of his words that he spoke without reason, and said that there was nothing to be done. Everyone was immediately very surprised after his attack, and even realized who he was. Sewell said that Hawk was floating in the air. It's even scary. But the second student said that she was more confused by the fact that he couldn't even scream. At the moment of impact, Hawk was thinking, why is this pain so strangely familiar to him? But Ruan at this time used the 3 happiness punching technique and special song against him. Then came the spicy taste of the first of the 3 techniques. Hawk thought about why he got hit again with such a strong and painful hand. Even memories came flooding back. And he has bracelets with a dragon. Why didn't he show them from the very beginning? Kwok was also surprised at that moment and saw that Ruan had turned the beggar into a doormat. He was a real devil. So when he said that he still communicated with him like a human being, it was true. Ruan then looked at the second one and asked why he wasn't rushing at him headlong. He answered himself, how dare he? And he said that he simply did not immediately recognize his great senior classmate. That's why he was rude. And he asked him for forgiveness. The other disciples were surprised that Sam fell on his knees before him. And this stubborn man fell. Rowan asked in surprise, is that how it turns out? And asked the others, are there any more dissatisfied here? The others immediately thought that they should be next then. Everyone immediately fell to their knees and replied that they would not fight him. And it was an honor for them to meet him, a senior fellow student. Ruan said yes, and although it was late, he was also glad. Let them not forget that the eldest disciple and Sabu were like gods to them. The students realized that they had definitely heard something like this before. What kind of school did Sabu and the senior classmate belong to? Why did the senior classmate suddenly go to the academy? But what difference does it make? Since he's the same as Sabu, he has no sense of logic. But Hawk's sacrifice shouldn't be in vain. Everyone immediately answered the great senior classmate that everything was correct. But then Kwok came and said that he saw that they had become well acquainted. And he told the students that today they had just met an older classmate. In the future, he would sometimes give them lessons. Namong thought, was this an introduction? Since when is beating called an introduction? He raised his hand and asked that in the future, the older classmate would come to his classes with them. Both answered that this would never happen. Kwok said that he had nothing to teach their older classmate. Chan was surprised and thought, why did Sejo bring him in the first place? He immediately raised his hand and asked the master how they met their senior classmate. Kwok thought for a moment and replied that he was actually acquainted with their master from Mount Ami. In fact, he had entrusted him with their care. He promised. So he will do everything possible to make them kick the ass of the Blue Dragon team. The students asked in surprise. What? This can't be. Kwok said that so let them think of the senior fellow disciple as the eyes of their master. But it would be better if they worshipped him as a god and put down the Blue Dragon team. And if they lose, next time they will not meet an older classmate. The students were very scared from the words alone and even felt a tremor in their legs. But on the mountain, Master Ruana was relaxing outside, enjoying his wonderful life. But suddenly a delivery man came to him and said that here was his monthly payment of 20 silver. Food and first-class alcohol are already inside. Cleaning, laundry, and dishwashing will soon be finished. And maybe the master needs something else? But the master simply waved his hand. The delivery man said that he thought the master looked very bored. After all, his student had asked him to take care of him with such sincerity, and apparently he missed him. The master asked in surprise, why is that? He misses yesterday's shit more than him, and he just wants to see what's left of the kid by his next birthday. So let him stop talking nonsense and get out of here. The delivery man obeyed immediately and replied that he would leave immediately. The master told him to try not to be like that the next day. At this time in the big city, the servant asked the lad, in the middle of May? The lad answered that, in general, yes, but this time, in the first half of May, there is a festival of the three holy masters. And besides, there are other big events this year, and it looks like the little fish has already adapted there. He will be able to see and have fun a lot this year. The servant asked him if he was talking about the third heir. The boy replied that he was. How else could one interpret the matter of the Queen of Swords Hall, which he reported? He deliberately showed his incompetence so that he would not be assigned the job of a spy. He is far from stupid or incompetent, but determined and patient. And the proof of that is that he survived that night. But judging by the report, he still lacks experience. And to open up means to take out your heart, and soon he himself will find out about it. Time will put everything in its place. Dako suddenly woke up in the night and immediately grabbed her head. She immediately told her sister that she was okay. Rin sat down next to her and saw that her sister was very ill and was suffering from terrible pain. She took her hand and said, ginger and licorice tea, and tonight the rain stopped. Dako looked and answered that the spring night is very long, and the rain is so heavy that it pours down like buckets. But they weren't the only ones who didn't sleep that night. Even Heron was walking in the rain and suddenly saw a tree and broke a piece of the tree. But suddenly he saw that some iron plate was stuck in a tree. He threw it on the ground and said that he hoped they would hold their horses between reports. And the paper really did dissolve. And suddenly he thought, who else is here, a spy from the pavilion of the heavenly demon? He thought that this wasn't the dorm's commandant, or maybe a student, a worker, but he didn't know anyone yet. But couldn't it be Ruan or Bar Chung-hong? But at that time, his brother Chung-hong was on the roof of the house and was watching everything. The next day, the teacher said that starting tomorrow, the selection of swordsmen to participate in the festival of the three holy masters would begin. And for beginners who listen to lectures on the basics of using weapons, it can be difficult. But I hope many will try their hand. Heron immediately thought that it was the festival of the three holy masters. Mo and Hui would naturally participate, and brother Chong Hong is sleeping now. He can see the whites of his eyes, how scary. But the teacher said that if they hope to pass the selection, here is some advice for them. Out of the five senses during a real fight, the most important is vision. But he couldn't really find out anything about Ruan. But the teacher said that the eyes are the mirror of the soul and the door that opens the world for them. And thanks to vision, you can read thoughts, predict the actions of your opponent. Dragon's eyes. But this is possible if they were born with the appropriate abilities. And by focusing their five-sense training on the eyes, they should strive for the level of heavenly sight, which will open them to the sixth sense, as well as extraordinary reaction speed. But no matter how much he repeats and tries to stop them, they won't understand if they sleep in class. The teacher suddenly used his powers and began to lift Ruan's hand with it. He immediately asked him why he gave him this. The gift didn't seem very useful. The teacher was surprised and asked in surprise, why isn't he sleeping? He needs to cut that hanging bang. Ruan replied that it was difficult. His father and master had instructed him to hide his eyes for safety reasons. Hui immediately thought, is this training to not rely on just eyesight? But Chang Hong felt like he was almost caught because of Ruan. Wearing bangs for safety? What a load of crap! But that's exactly what Heron thought. But after these words, he became even more interested. After the lesson, Heron asked Ruan right away, was that the real reason? The other day, the old man said he had a scar or something there. Ruan replied that he was wrong. He was flawless from head to toe, so dazzling that it was dangerous. Changhong told him to stop talking nonsense and run to the music art lesson. And the place behind the seventh divine sword is his, and there is no need to take it. But Yun smiled and wished them luck, the four of them to go to the combat instrumental, and he after the control lesson to the special training. Changhong told him that he goes there every day, never missed a single one. And there are rumors that the guys from the Red Falcons team have been on their last legs for the last few days. How is he feeling anyway? Yun replied that he can't move after training, and he trains separately from the guys from the Red Falcons team. It may sound strange, but if someone can stand on their own 2 feet after training, they are in trouble. Of course, they don't know all the circumstances, but they are sincere and friendly. Ruan said that if the ability is not enough, the body has to suffer. Chung Hong immediately told him to quickly go to class before he starts playing his old barrel organ. Heron immediately asked Ruan if he could do a handstand and guess how many fingers he was showing. He was very surprised and asked what kind of nonsense was this. Heron replied that it was just his little whim. If he did, he would treat him to something tasty on the weekend. Ruan said that then, no problem. Any whim for their money. Chung Hong was surprised and thought, why so suddenly? This is a trick. That fool will stand upside down and they will see his eyes. Heron was delighted and realized that he would now find out why he was hiding his eyes. But he could look like a simpleton and was afraid that people would look down on him. Chung Hong thought that this idiot probably looks funny since he's hiding behind his bangs. Hui also couldn't even imagine at that moment. Ruan immediately fulfilled the boy's wish. But then they were very surprised and Chung Hong asked him, what the hell? What is he doing? Ruan asked in surprise, what's wrong? And let Heron show his fingers. He's completely ready. Chung Hong asked him if he was using spiritual power to make his bangs hang down. But how did he do it? Heron suddenly confessed and said that he had lost. But Hui said that it is not easy to control hair at will. Incredible control of spiritual powers. Ruan stood up and said that it was Heron who was treating them on the weekend. But suddenly someone started running towards them and shouted at him to get out of the way. But Ruan just stepped aside and looked at them. At that moment, the guy stopped and said, "What did he say from the road?" "What a moron!" Ruan asked in surprise. "Blockhead? What the? Shouldn't he politely apologize?" Chung Hong told him that they were from the Blue Dragon team, and the one he encountered was one of the 9 dragons. And the 7 Phoenix flying dragon of the sword family Hasi-in. Let him not bully them, he just has to go to class. Ruan asked in surprise. The Blue Dragon team? But these 3 are so weak that they can't dodge even with their eyes open. Ying instantly pulled out his sword and asked him, "Does he want to die? Where did he even come from, such a freak?" The others also said to Ruan that this was outrageous. How could a mere student dare to block their path? But the disciple also said that gathering a team of blue dragons was more important than teaching a newbie, and she suggested to the captain that they go. Ruan replied that he was still worried about the Red Falcon team, as if they wouldn't be able to defeat this team of small blue grapes. Ying immediately attacked him and shouted at the moment of attack, how dare he talk to him. But Ruan immediately used his skills, and with one blow he knocked his own sword out of his hands. Ying was very surprised that he didn't even understand how this could happen, and even a freshman defeated him. The student immediately told him to quickly cover himself. Ruan told him that if he kept swinging his sword like that, something would definitely happen to him. But then someone came and asked what all the fuss was about. Everyone immediately turned around and replied that they were greeting the gentleman of the noble sword. The noble sword looked at the others and told them to introduce themselves. Hui immediately bowed and replied that he greeted Conson Ilchui. Heron also introduced himself and said that he was from the Sky Lord Sword School. Chung Hong and Ruan also replied that they welcomed him. Ilchui said that since Moen Hui is a guy, does that mean he is Moen Zhongcheon's grandson? Zhongcheon had the talent to become famous, but apparently he didn't have the talent to properly educate his grandson. Hui was surprised and asked what? Ruan was also very surprised at this moment and looked at the elder strangely. Ilchui asked if he didn't know that words come from kindness and justice, not from strength. Hui replied that he had heard wrong. Ilchui asked him again, was he living a life where he didn't know where he was wrong? Or was he living a life where he knew where he was wrong, but pretended he wasn't? But suddenly he thought and said that he would sort it out personally. He asked the captain why they were running here and what happened. Ying replied that upon hearing the news of the urgent convocation of the Blue Dragon team, he rushed off. Although he asked to step aside, he ran into those who blocked the road, and he wanted to put them down, but he was humiliated. Ilchui said that it seemed that the Blue Dragon team still had a lot to learn. After all, to uphold justice, one needs strength. And since they realized how disgraced they were, let them go and train. Ilchui asked the boy, so he doesn't know what he did wrong? And then Ruan answered that he doesn't know, and asked, shouldn't they have heard both sides' versions first? Although he asked to step aside, he jumped on his treasure, and then he started to make a fuss, and even pulled out his sword to teach him a lesson. And why does Grandpa say that this guy made a mistake, although he was not even involved in this matter? Ilchui replied that the boy had humiliated a child who was one of the 9 dragons and 7 phoenixes. Among the current students, there were only 16 such outstanding people, and he doesn't think there's any other newcomer other than Cheon's grandson who could do it. And he doesn't know. Besides him, this Uncle Heron would have managed without any problems. At that moment, Chung Hong understood that he would have managed. But what was he doing? And what the hell is a noble sword doing here? Isn't the rumor that he doesn't like heroes true? But whatever, he'll try to fix everything. Chung Hong said that he is Hui's friend and roommate. He is strong enough, but he still doesn't know much. So let the master be lenient with his words. Heron also said that it was true that Ruan only counterattacked, and Moen Hui had nothing to do with the incident at all. Ilchui was surprised and asked, what? And to be honest, at this age it is not uncommon for children to drop everything just to protect their friends. Chung Hong knew that it wasn't true. He wasn't the same age as these fools. Did Heron think that the noble sword thought that he was lying to cover for Hui? Ilchui said that he had once been like that. So let them remember that. If they make a mistake in choosing a friend, it will only lead to painful sacrifices and troubles that are difficult to fix. Originally, there were 4 heroes. No matter how strong the spirit of heavenly calamities is, they have nothing to worry about if there are 4 heroes. The 4 heroes will easily rise up against the bastards of the spirit of heavenly calamities. And the divine sword Moen Zhongcheon and the holy sword Gongsheng Ilchui are the real genius sword kings. But the tyrant swordsman Ta Hu Shik and the holy swordswoman Li Ok Sa are also great. Heron asked his uncle why he had that expression. Chang Hong replied that he didn't know. It looked like he was remembering the past. Ilchvi said that he too had been destroyed by a celestial disaster at the most important moment. But Heron had watched him and said that his face had now darkened. Chang Hong replied that he must have remembered something terrible. But what could he possibly remember? Could it be that long ago, before the final battle with the heavenly disaster, he lay in bed for several days with an unknown disease? Of course, there were rumors that Kansen was simply pretending to be ill out of fear of heavenly disasters. And that is why only 3 holy masters are known in the world, and he was covered in shame. People asked, what is this? The hero of the 9 great factions has been protecting the Murim for hundreds of years, but there is not a single member of the 3 heavenly warrior directorates among them. And he expected so much from the Holy Sword. He is disappointed. What is the meaning of his having studied the martial arts of the Wuding school better than anyone else? And after that, gritting his teeth, he defeated more than one Aster, thereby earning himself fame. Perhaps the noble sword, who is the head of the Senate of the Heavenly Warrior Academy and the deputy of the 3 heavenly warrior departments, still holds in his heart what happened 100 years ago. But while those 3 were recovering from their wounds, he went through a rigorous 1,000-day training and risked his life, killing countless enemies. But they stopped the god of heavenly disasters. He only dealt with the remnants of the clique. Therefore, they are the 3 holy masters, and he is just a noble sword. But even if not personally, the cause of his tragedies was his friend and rival, Moen Zhongjong. If it weren't for him, that terrible monster at Mount Ami wouldn't have attacked him in a decisive battle. Ilchui said that even when his friends try to cover up his sins, they are still his mistakes. Should he forgive him, since he knows his grandfather personally? Or should he teach him etiquette and what he failed to learn? Hui replied that since he was asking, no matter what his friends did that went against their conscience, he didn't think it was polite to drag his grandfather into it. And then Ilchvi got angry and asked the boy where his manners were. And how dare he tell him what is polite and what is not? Hui replied that he sincerely apologized if he had offended him. But before he became his grandfather, he was already incomparably wiser than him, so he shouldn't speak about him like that. Ilchui told the guy that he was right, and for trying to protect Mo and Hui, and asked him again, what is his name? Ruan answered that he was not trying to cover for him, and immediately introduced himself again. Ilchui laughed and told him that he had said earlier that he had humiliated one of the current top students of the Celestial Warrior Academy, who was one of the 9 dragons and 7 dates. Is that right? He asked. Ruan asked the old man what he thought, that he had humiliated him by using his name. Ilchui was surprised and asked, is that so? And immediately said that he and the grandson of Chung Chong must reach the final of the festival of the 3 holy masters and fight, and then he will believe him. Ruan asked him, and he will apologize for everything he said today? Ilchui asked in surprise. For what he said. And after thinking, he answered that yes, if he wanted. But in exchange, if they could not prove their strength, they would kneel before that boy on the alley of heavenly warriors and apologize for his rudeness and lies. Chang Hong immediately felt that this was too much. Didn't they tell him that the noble sword had senile dementia? Ruan asked, what are the conditions? Simply everyone must bear the consequences of using force. Hui also said that he agrees under conditions. Ilchvi laughed and asked, so even if they lose, they don't want to hurt their opponent? A striking example of friendship. Ilchui thought about it and said that he agreed and would wait for the festival of the 3 holy masters. And then he immediately thought, what will be the face of Cheon when his grandson kneels on the dirty ground? And here it doesn't matter to him who wins and who loses. Will they be able to maintain their friendship? He is very interested. The headmistress asked her students that the reason for their lateness was because the 7th divine sword and his companions had beaten them. But how is that possible? They are from the Blue Dragon team. They were with one of the 9 dragons and 7 phoenixes, the 7 swords flying dragon Ha Xian. The disciple replied that it was all true. Master Ha needed to change his clothes. He would be back soon, but the disciple also said that he did not know where to look. Ying had been careless. The others started saying that the 7th divine sword was a first-year student. So why was the successor of the holy sword careless? The guy replied that he thought he would still get it from the noble sword, but shouldn't they teach him a lesson as a member of the Blue Dragon team? And then the girl asked, didn't the seventh divine sword become the head of the club of lovers of young girls? And then they asked Tai that he was the deputy. Tai replied that he knew nothing. He was detached and had not seen the seventh divine sword. And then he decided that he would pretend that he did not know and that he knew nothing. The girl looked at him and thought that he was a piece of trash who visited a club for perverts. But he had good skills. But would the seventh divine sword be useful to the community? And suddenly the door opened, and in said that everything was in place. The others were immediately glad that the captain had come. The girl looked at him and saw that he had arrived. The captain of the Blue Dragon team, and also the head of the Kujan community. Ying said that today he called them all to discuss the Three Holy Masters Festival. Following the words of the Ice Sword Master, everyone from the Blue Dragon team participates except the captain and his deputy, and they must get the highest score. But the Red team received information at this moment and asked, isn't the Red Falcon team taking part in the festival of the Three Holy Masters? The student asked seriously, why? To miss such a big event. This time the student said he would go. Namong replied that it was to prevent losses and keep the strategy and their strength a secret. Chan said that it was true, they still had to fight the Blue Dragon team. Heron also replied that they would definitely keep their powers a secret. And at the festival, many people get injured. And the last few days were already too hard to bear. And besides, Haku still needs time to recover. Sol also said that his problems are more psychological than physical. Hak was scared at this time and asked how they ended up here. He definitely threw them out in the field. Chang replied that he had picked them up and saved them just in case. But let him try again. He might see an older classmate somewhere. Axe thought about it and said that since this was the case, it was time to stop talking about all sorts of horrors. And he suggested that they talk about something more productive. And anyway, didn't they want to place bets on who would come out on top? Chan said that's right. This time, there's a candidate in the competition whose powers only they know. How about raising the stakes? Namong asked in surprise. Only they know? Who is he talking about? Shang replied, as about whom? About the very embodiment of fear that others do not know. As far as he knows, the senior fellow disciple will definitely go to the festival of the Three Holy Masters. After the fight, Changhong asked the guy if he hit his head. Heron also asked him if he was serious. He was really going to the Three Saint Masters Festival with this? Ruan asked right away, what is it? Musical martial art. It's cool. And martial arts competitions don't necessarily involve something as common as hands, feet, and weapons. Are the two of them the only ones taking musical martial arts classes? Of course, the cooler the thing, the better. The flute and pipa are not up to his thunderkin. Chang Hong asked him if he really went to lessons. To increase the power of musical martial art, you need a lightweight, mobile instrument that makes it easier to control the direction of sound. And so it's much more convenient to use something like his flute. Heron also said that maximum freedom of movement is the key to amplifying and controlling both sound and spiritual energy. And of course, his thunderkin is valuable and elegant, but his pipa will be more comfortable. Chang Hong said that besides, his thunderkin has serious problems with sound production. And he still hasn't forgotten what happened that day in the musical martial arts lesson. In the first practical lesson on martial instruments, Ruan said that using a thin silver thread, like a string, in this chin, one can feel the life force. And if he doesn't mind, she can play his chin. And then Ryan replied that no. After all, if she lost her fingers, she wouldn't be able to teach musical martial arts. Ruan asked, is he saying that he will cut off her fingers if she touches his kin? Ruan said no. He means that this chin can actually chop off a finger. There are no problems now, but when he was a child, he almost cut off his finger. The guy who was his porter ignored his warning and almost lost his finger. But if she doesn't believe he won't stop, and can he absolve himself of responsibility? Ran thought about it and replied that then she would try once. Rune said that since she wanted it so much, she could try touching it very carefully and just a little. Ran immediately sat down at the instrument and touching it lightly with her finger, she wounded it and screamed. Ran asked why the strings were so sharp. No matter how valuable the chin was, it was useless if it couldn't be played. Ruan replied that although it was a bit difficult, he could play it. Ruan sat down in front of his playing instrument and began to play a beautiful composition on the first try. Ran was very surprised that he could actually play, and the sound was so gentle, like a chick with a flower in its beak going for a walk. Ruan finished and said that he remembered how everyone admired his playing skills. His fingers are fine, so what's the problem? Chung Hong replied that he didn't look like a master of physical strength, which meant he was strengthening his fingers with spiritual energy. And if he had to use it even to touch the strings, how would he put spiritual energy into the melody itself? Heron asked his brother that the fatal flaw of Qin was not the immobility of the body. Chung Hong replied that yes, it is a serious problem. It is impossible to play while holding the Qin in your hands. Constantly hardens himself in closed training sessions and drinks elixirs to tear this idiot apart. But playing the Qin requires strength. What will he do if a knife is thrown at him? It's not that there is no way out, but it's not something you can learn in 1 to 2 months of musical martial arts. Heron also told Ruan that he respected his intention, but he would tell him one thing. He would be on the ground. He would fall like nits. Ruan told them not to worry, that wouldn't happen. And then he suddenly remembered and asked the boys, weren't the two of them going to the festival of the three holy masters? It would be fun to meet in the final. Why are they just grumbling and not going to participate? Heron told him that he overestimates him. It would be fun just to watch him. Chung Hong also told him that when he was little, he ate the wrong medicine, which caused him to have stage fright. Now he can't stand it when a crowd stares at him and they think he's over 25. Ruan told his uncle that he thought he needed to consult someone about this. Heron asked his brother if he was sure he was okay. Chung Hong replied that he didn't care and that instead of worrying about him, they should worry about themselves. If he wants to enter the festival, he must take a place at level 5 Dragon Sword or higher during the test, which will last 5 days starting tomorrow. The first level of the Dragon Sword is obtained upon admission, the second upon successful transition to the second year of study, and this way you can reach the stage of the 4th Dragon Sword. But the level of the 5th Dragon Sword can only be obtained by passing a special test. The 6th Dragon Sword is a rank that is given to the teams of the 4 gods, and the 7th to the 9 dragons and 7 phoenixes. Heron said, and to increase his level, he needs to defeat 2 people or endure a draw for 300 attacks in an open sparring match. So he will first have to challenge 2 people of the 5th sword level to a duel. Chung Hong also said that it was true. And there are many talents in the academy. There are about 500 people at the level of the 5th Dragon Sword. So he should easily find 2 people to fight in 5 days. And if he receives a challenge to such a duel, he cannot refuse without a good reason, such as a wound or illness. And so, one duel should be held as early as possible, and the other as late as possible. For example, on the last day or the night before the festival, Ruan asked in surprise, why? Wouldn't it be better to sort things out early? Chung Hong asked, what do you mean why? If he wins the rank battle, he won't be able to refuse the challenge to a duel, and he's sure that many students will want to improve their positions during this period. Heron thought about it and said that Ruan was good, so the students would fight him until he collapsed. Then they would get the rank of 5th Dragon Sword. Chung Hong replied that it was true, and they would pounce on their fool until he got hurt. Ruan thought about it and said that that was it. What a good rule. Namong asked in surprise, what is it? Under the 6th Dragon Sword, he is about the teams of the 4 gods? And the winner of the 6th Dragon Sword? Heron replied that the level of the 5th Dragon Sword was enough. Why would he need the 6th? Ruan replied that he wanted to show how moral he was. If he hits someone of the 5th sword level, he will die. If they don't want to recommend someone of the 6th sword level, just let him fight him. But then Chang stepped in and said no. He would prepare a list of names, excluding them and the 9 dragons and 7 phoenixes, so that he could enjoy the wonderful fight. Ruan agreed and said that since the Blue Grape team is theirs, he won't touch them. So let him pick the lucky ones from the 3 who are left. And then Hawk replied that there were 100 people left. But Sam said that this was nonsense. If you exclude the 9 dragons and the 7 phoenixes and the White Tiger team, there are only 12 left. Soul said Sam is no better. They should set their priorities straight and send the biggest loser. But the student standing next to her said that there were 1 to 5 people she wanted to beat up. So it was easy. But suddenly Namong replied that they should all calm down now. And don't let your personal feelings and interests get involved. They are the Red Falcons team, the pride of the Sky Warriors Academy, and supporters of the Light factions. Heron supported him and said that as a deputy, She cannot make decisions based on emotions. And she suggested a vote. Namong was very surprised by her decision and asked, what? But then the student said that she agreed. But Axe suggested writing the person's name and the reason for the choice next to it, and he would even prepare the forms. But suddenly the disciple asked, what about sending a challenge to a duel to Huangbo? Then there would be no reason to worry. Ruan listened to them and clapped them and said that he was very pleased to see how everyone worked together. And then he would go and do more important things, and they should make a list by evening. When Ryuan came home, he was surprised and asked what the heap was. Hui replied that he was sorting duel challenges and the like. Ruan said he was more interested in this pile and such. Why did he put it aside without opening it? And he thinks there's something pretty good in these wooden boxes. Hui replied that he was not interested. Besides, the ones he received personally were relatively harmless, but the unsorted ones from the reception area were dangerous. The envelopes and boxes contain aphrodisiacs, aromas of passion, various poisonous insects. There may also be substances that stupefy the mind. Ruan asked, how can you tell if the thing inside is dangerous or not? Don't open it. Shui replied that what he receives personally from men, as well as envelopes with a name clearly written on them, are safe. But suddenly Hui noticed something and shouted at Ruan to immediately step back. Soon the box burst into flames and spread poison all over the room. Hui immediately apologized and said that it was his carelessness, caused by the name written on the box, that put him in danger. And he would never open mail in the room again. Ruan replied that it made no difference to him. After all, he had developed a resistance to such things after being bitten by a poisonous snake. But as compensation, he wouldn't mind getting notes on the required lectures. And he's got a list. How about helping him with the rejection? After all, among those at the level of the 6th dragon sword, 5 are still trash. He chose 2, but there are still 3 left. Although they are at this stage, there is nothing to be afraid of. But then Hui immediately answered him that he would never help, and thanked him for his help. Ying was at the academy at the time, saying that the plan was neat and detailed. The rest was fine too. Should he really summon the 7th divine sword for the sake of a leveling test? They even have the 3rd shining sword Cheon-hum. How about having a sparring match with the 7th divine sword? And he believes in Cheon-hun. The elder asked the leader what he thought they didn't believe in Shun-hung, but he had to consider that it was Ruan from the 7th divine sword gang who humiliated In and the Blue Dragon team. If they can't ignore that the Kujong community members were insulted, then what's the point of the club's existence? In replied that he understood everything and said that then they would react according to all the rules. And he heard that Weiji Chun was in a very bad condition. How is he now? The elder replied that he had gone crazy and it was all because of Ryan. He was constantly training in clothes training and drinking elixirs to tear that idiot apart. And soon they would see him fulfill his wish. The next day, Penn gathered the people and said that they probably all already knew the name of this lecher. This is the one who dared to humiliate their treasure with his dirty hands, and the one who is responsible for their disgrace. His name is B. Ruan. Everyone immediately started shouting that he is a pig and should die. Penn said that they have been waiting for their moment for a long time. When the night passes and the day comes, the official 5-day competition will begin. And he is Penn, the deputy head of the Ice Phoenix Guard Squad. He received information that he has issued a challenge for the 5th dragon sword, for touching their goddess, and he offers to grind him into dust. The disciple came out and said that, as the deputy had said earlier, he had brought shame on all of them. Their leader at the 7th sword level could not punish him, so they, those at the 5th sword level, should unite and trample him. V was training at the time and said he didn't even know. Sounds good. However, I have a feeling he'll tear it to pieces with his own hands. The next day on the road, Heron asked the boy if he really wanted to fight 2 battles in a row in the morning. Ruan replied that he didn't like delaying. Chang Hong told Heron to leave him, and he sees that this fool has a disease, that if he listens to anyone, he will die. And fortunately, he at least gave up his desire to fight in the 3 Saint Masters Festival with the help of musical martial art. Heron said that was true too. Since he hadn't brought the Kian, he must have decided to surrender. Ruan turned around and said that he simply wouldn't see the right people today, so he didn't take him. This is just a selection, not a festival of the 3 holy masters. But suddenly someone asked, is this the 7th divine sword Moen Hui? Isn't he as strong as they say? Let him fight him once. Hui replied that he hadn't officially been granted the level of a dragon sword yet. He couldn't just enter the battle. And right now he's going to the qualifying fight, and he asked them to forgive him. Heron asked his uncle, does he know them? Chung Hong replied that it looked like the twin swords of Noju Sang and Jehagun. Although they were not brothers, they could boast the skill of striking together like twins. The guy said that the rumors were true about him being arrogant and impudent towards his older comrades. But the second guy replied that he didn't know. As for him, unlike the rumors, he looks like a cowardly and trembling little dog. Hui said that unofficial duels were against school rules. If they wanted to cross swords with him, they should follow procedure and issue the challenge after today's exams were over. The boy replied that school rules were a kind of excuse. Where in the academy had he seen a person who had never secretly gotten involved in a fight? But the second guy said he was just scared. They say tigers don't have puppies, but apparently after 2 generations, it's still possible. But then Hui turned around and asked him what he had just said. The guy replied that he was saying that the grandson of the holy sword Moen Cheon was a coward, at whom even passing mongrels laughed. The second guy started laughing and said that it seemed like the holy sword wasn't successful in everything. Heron asked what the hell they were saying that even dogs were laughing at him. Chung Hong replied that they probably wanted to stop the 7th divine sword from passing the exam, and that's why they brought Grandpa in. But then Ruan said that it was time for them to go while there was still time. Hui asked them how they dared to say such a thing. He wouldn't just let it go. The boys immediately got ready and answered that, since he wouldn't let it go, they would help him. And now they will see if he is able to answer for his words. Hui immediately took up his blade and looked at them. The boys sat down to watch. Ruan told Heron that he saw him take some beef jerky with him. Heron replied that he took it and was about to eat while watching him fight. Chung Hong looked and said that these idiots were a pain in the ass for the 7th divine sword. Ruan shouted at Hui to finish them off and destroy them by replaying. Heron asked why. Even though there were 2 of them, they were no match for the 7th divine sword. But Chung Hong said that individually, yes. Both of them are only at the level of the 5th dragon sword. After all, the test to determine the level of the dragon sword tests one-on-one combat abilities, because individual skills are extremely important. But since they use the art of joint strike, it will be more difficult to fight them than 2 of the 9 dragons and 7 phoenixes at the same time. And this is a dual illusion sword formation. This is a technique of the art of joint strike specializing in attacks from both sides. But as it accelerates, it blocks the opponent like an illusionary trap. But at that moment, Hui was distracted and got a back injury. Everyone was surprised, and Chung Hong said that eventually. But then the guy said that he was injured, and they asked why he didn't kneel down right now and admit defeat. Hui told them that from now on he would be serious with them, and even a little more careful. Hui didn't just play around with them and immediately used one of his strong attacks to destroy the opponent. Everyone was surprised. But suddenly a girl came to the guys and said that it was really incredible. Chung Hong replied that now he would show what he was capable of. And it's not for nothing that he is the 7th divine sword. But at that moment, Heron looked at the girl and realized that this was Ji Sol, the precious daughter of the Li family, famous in the martial arts world for using twin swords. But it's an interesting fight, but it's such a pleasure to watch it. Ji said that the sword strikes are so strong, but at the same time soft and smooth, but she's not sure that she wields the sword so well. Heron replied that this concerned him as well. Few were as skilled with a sword as Mo and Hui, but the fact that the lady recognized his skills is unusual in itself. Even though it is their first meeting, he thinks that her skills are also up to par. Saul was surprised and replied that this was a compliment. It seemed like he was not bad either. Heron laughed and asked, did she think so? Of course he's pleased to hear from a man who uses dual swords. He uses dual swords too. And then Ruan said that this is the final. We immediately used the Milky Way falling star sword technique and the Milky Way third starlight form. The boys were very surprised and held broken swords in their hands. Hui asked them if they were going to retract their absurd remarks. The guy immediately told him that he refused and they screwed up big time. But then Saul came up to him and said that the way he had dealt with these 2, who were famous for their art of joint strike, was amazing. Hui was very surprised and heard the woman's voice. Sul said that she saw everything. His sword technique is flawless. Hui looked and realized that she didn't look dangerous. But she was a woman. He said that he was grateful for such words, and now he was in a hurry for the exam. Ruan looked at him and asked, Since he was so flawless, then why were there so many stains on his shoulder? Heron said that he was wounded during the battle. Should he provide first aid? Chung Hong replied that there was no time to stitch the wound, but he had wound ointment and a bandage. Heron turned to the girl and asked if it would be tactless if he asked her name. Saul replied that nothing. In introducing herself, she said that she was from the generation of the Li family that studied the art of dual swords. And since he also uses twin swords, maybe they could fight next time? Heron replied that it was fine. See you then. And for today, he was taking his leave. When he started fighting, Moon Hyun of Hengshan School said that he didn't want rumors to spread that he had beaten a wounded man, but maybe he would refuse. Hui replied that no, he was going to do it, and he would do everything to defeat an upstart like him. But on the other side of the court, Ruan came out to fight, and seeing his opponent, said that he was really unlucky. The guy got angry and said that as payment for challenging him so fearlessly, he would open the doors of hell for him. Ruan thought for a moment and said that he didn't know what his opponent was talking about there, but from the way he spoke, he was that loser. Previously, Namgung said that fluttering blade of grass, sword Tang Daipun from the Black Turtle team. Because of his frequent clashes with the Red Falcon team, 7 people voted for him, and the deputy for a strange organization that calls itself the Ice Phoenix Guardians. He belittles everyone except the Ice Phoenix, including the Red Falcons. If it weren't for school rules, she would have poured corrosive drugs up his nose, eyes, and mouth. But unfortunately, his skills are good. He is the most talented from the Mount Chang school. His specialty is continuous strokes, sharp and flexible, like herbalists. The opponent got angry and said to Ruan, "How dare a bastard without a clan or tribe say such a thing?" But now they would see how much longer he could laugh. Ruan thought and replied that he thought the guy wasn't very smart, but he turned out to be sick in the head, and let him lie down quickly and he would be cured now. The opponent said, "What is this nonsense? He's going to get his ass kicked now." Chung Hong looked at all of this and said that with such provocative powers, he could make even the best in the world mad. Heron also replied that Ryan is only still a teenager. Even the judges are enamored of him. One of the judges asked why he was making such a dangerous provocation against Poon. The others answered him that Poon was too vicious. A little more, and he would be hurt. Pun used his technical attack and realized that Ruan was a fool, and he couldn't dodge. But Ruan was faster and stronger this time, and by moving his body to the side, he dodged the attack. Poon was very upset and was left with a surprised face. But Ruan didn't waste any time and kicked him in the head. All the judges and spectators were surprised from such difficult and strong blows. But Ruan kept beating the guy and used the metamorphosis of endless rebirths. One of the judges asked if he hadn't warned. The others replied that the attack seemed to have stopped and it was a fair fight. Heron spared a surprised emotion and said that apparently that apprentice disliked Ryan a lot, and the place should be cleaned up before the next fight. Maybe they should go there too. After a while they came down, and Heron said that it looked like they were getting frustrated with the battle scene, and they only decided last night in a hurry when the fights would be held. There was no talk about it. So how did they know? The girls were greatly disappointed and said how could it be that their master Moan was bleeding? And what kind of battle was this? Chungin replied to his friend that it looked like there was a bigger fight than their fool, and there was no need to go up there. It was better to watch from here. Heron said he had no objection, but here it looked like it would be over soon. Meanwhile in the arena, Hui fought to the last with his opponent and repelled attacks with his sword. But suddenly Hui picked up his moment and released all his strength, and in the same second, he extended his sword towards Hen's head. The girls were overjoyed and shouted that they knew that young Master Moan would win. And this is the 7th divine sword. Hui left the arena immediately after the fight to heal his wounds, for leaving behind him were drops of blood. Heron looked and said that the wounds on Moan Hui's body had only gotten worse, and remembering he asked, "Did the Hengshan school always use this kind of weapon?" Chung Hong asked back, "Is he talking about Lu Xingchui?" And they don't use it. Apparently he learned more than just the martial arts of his school, and quite well. But he found it very odd that misophobia and wounds were a deadly combination. And perhaps someone had carefully planned it all out beforehand. And was it really them? The guy hiding his face under the fan said that he came to see Tang Dae-poon and Kang Hyun-ju and saw something strange. Isn't that Moon Hyun from the White Tiger team on their list? The other guy replied that he didn't even really know. Besides, he came out with Liu Xinchu. Fatty jumped into the conversation and asked, could it be that the seventh divine sword learned about the list because he was sharing a room with a senior disciple? But the kid replied that it was scary. The older co-ed is really scary, and he doesn't want to get in front of the older co-student. Maybe we should disguise ourselves. But the principal said no, he doesn't stand out like that. The senior co-student came. This time it's Kang Hyun-ju. Ruan came out to fight and started telling his opponent that heathen from Gija Hakata Mountain, Kang Hyun-ju from Wushan School, and also a member of the Black Turtle team. And he's the one who specializes in spreading dirty rumors about people he doesn't like, right? But this time, they'll let the cheers go. Let him attack. Time's running out. Ju couldn't stand it and started yelling that he was being rude. But so be it, he asked him magnanimously. He takes into consideration that this is his second fight in a row. But his thoughts frightened him, for he realized that Tangpun was stronger than him. Would he be able to win? And it was better for him to give up than to lose face like Tangpun. Ju decided to launch an attack. But it was too late. Ruan himself attacked first and was in front of him with an attack. The fates soon began to say that this wasn't a fight, just a beating. Ju looked like he wanted to stand down. And that's overkill. But he didn't let him finish after Ju had already pulled out his sword. The observer said it was horrible, but no hawk experienced it firsthand. In a way, the head apprentice is worse than Sabu himself. The kid said yes. And were they right to write the list? Fatty said that in any case, if anyone should be hurt, let it be them better. And he would certainly still like to watch the seventh divine sword fight, but the senior co-student would be coming out soon, and they would have to go. Changong saw everything and said that this gang was watching their fool, not the seventh divine sword. But suddenly Heron replied that he was done, and it was lucky that he and Ruan weren't enemies. Changong told him that if he hung out with him, he'd make a lot of enemies. Heron laughed and replied that it wasn't boring. Ruan saw them too and asked, were they admiring him there? And to be honest, it wasn't very much. It was over quickly. And soon they will win and be done. But strangely, things aren't going so well. Their buddy looked fierce today. Hui also came out for his duel and won. The girls shouted their congratulations on receiving their fifth dragon sword. The opponent said he was astonished. The descendant of the Holy Sword is really good, and asked Hui if his wounds were all right. Daipen thought that Hui was the rising star of their community of 8 after all. He could just pretend to be weak so he would decide to save his strength for attacks. Suddenly, Pen felt coldness in his body and started shivering, screaming that he was in pain, and his clothes just fell to the ground. Pen screamed in shame at them not to look. And that treacherous bastard didn't even realize what was wrong with his rags. Usually he's the type to act like this, but now he's looking for his mommy. It's disgusting. Ruan asked his own, what was he turning in? I mean, he just stripped him, and he was using metamorphosis. Heron approached him and asked, how about not throwing around techniques like metamorphosis? After all, the Festival of the Three Holy Masters was coming up. Chung Hong said that during open competitions, you have to think about the people watching as well. No matter how strong he is, they may not want to recognize the results of a fight that looked like a simple beating. Ruan replied that of course he was aware of that. Does he think his friend is that stupid? This time he's going to invite someone special to heat up the atmosphere to the max. Heron asked, inviting who? Chun Hong told him that before dreaming of the future, it was better to think about how to stay whole for the rest of today. There's still a whole week until the festival starts, and the enemies he has made will flock from all sides. Even if he copes with them all, there is no way to avoid the consequences to his body. Times would be hard and there would be no time to recover. By the opening of the festival, he would forget to even think of using his chin. A few days passed and Heron was saying that this was the day the Triple Holy Masters Festival would start. And asked Ruan if he was worried. Ruan just smiled and replied that of course not. And with excitement in his eyes, he said that he should go to the fight already. But this time, Yun also came and said that he couldn't make it to the Dragon Sword exam because it coincided with his training. But today he would try to help as much as possible. Heron said he's been collecting something since yesterday. He'd brought a lot of it. Chung'un was curious and asked what it was. Yun replied that there were medicines, bandages, cotton cloth, simple snacks, and water. He heard that there were wounded people at the Dragon Sword exam. Ruan said that was right. Someone bled out before the exam even started. He wasn't sure if it would all be needed today, but it was better to prepare in advance. Hui replied that he didn't think it would take all that either, so he went to fight. Ruan said his wounds haven't healed yet, but he's acting strong. But as the head of a young girls' club, he behaves decently. Chung Kong turned to him and replied the same, that he didn't know what to point out first. Probably pay attention to the chin he was holding now. Had he forgotten all of his advice? Ryuan answered him not to worry, some he had considered and prepared. He exercised on the plants in the back of his friend's room. Heron asked, "So he's the one who turned the flower bed in the dorm courtyard into ruins?" Chunhong also asked, "Is he the herb killer?" Ruan replied that he was just experimenting with the sound technique he learned in class. He didn't think it would come out so sad. He remembered the words of the teacher who said that the best way to practice sound technique was to practice against plants. Plants are very sensitive to the energy that is transmitted with sounds, so they can see the successes with their own eyes. Chanyan asked, "And that's why he sent all those pretty flowers behind the dorm to the other side of the world?" Ruan replied that he didn't know his technique would be so destructive either. Everything flows, everything changes. It's hard to predict the power of genius. How about writing it off as force majeure? Suddenly, all of a sudden, they heard a great ringing. Heron said that it seemed to be starting, and it was time to go. The participants told the Heavenly Warrior Academy disciples that they vow not to lose their way, not to lose faith, not to neglect life, and to do their best to participate in the Three Saint Masters Festival that will last the entire month. The participants also said their solemn oaths and saluted the Heavenly Warrior Academy. Suddenly, one of the three Holy Masters, Holy Sword Master Moen Jung Cheon, arrived at the competition. And behind him, one of the three Holy Masters, Sword Queen Liao San, arrived. Finally, one of the three Holy Masters, the Holy Blade Saint Ha Hu Shik, appeared. The disciples greeted them and all shouted together that they were happy to see the Masters. The head also stood up and said that he thanked the Holy Masters for honoring the festival with their presence this time. Zhang Cheon said that the final fight is still a month away, but they decided to attend the opening ceremony because they are excited about the promising newcomers. And this year, the descendants of all three of them got into the academies. He expects a lot. The referee shouted that the qualifying tournament would begin after today's opening ceremony. Sheik started laughing and said it would be interesting to watch their kids fight for the win, but his granddaughter isn't participating this time, so he will only be watching their kids. And which one do they think will win? San replied that Mr. Schick was joking. It doesn't matter who wins. It would be good for their promising newcomers anyway. The judge suddenly said that the schedule for each round would be published in the student bulletin, and then the principal would announce the opening ceremony. Schick asked, "Could it be that the Queen of Swords isn't sure?" San asked in response, "Why is he still so confident after decades?" Cheon laughed and said that seeing that they hadn't changed today made his heart feel better. The head stepped in front of everyone and said that every student of the Heavenly Warrior Academy was their pride, and he understands their excitement. And so it will be brief. In front of them, Peng Su, the director of the Heavenly Warrior Academy, today announces the beginning of the 30th Festival of the Three Holy Masters. Chung'an was watching everything and said that this whole situation is a no-brainer right now. Heron said he agreed with him. They all came to see Ryuan fight. Heron said he heard that Ruan had something to do with the Flame Blade and knows the guys on the Red Falcon team. And would they be able to be friends with them if Junho wasn't there? Chunong replied that he didn't even know. And judging from their facial expressions, they weren't too thrilled about their fool. And besides, the three of them were the same ones who had watched Ryuan fight in the Dragon Sword exam. Heron said that's right. They definitely want to find out Ryuan's weaknesses. Maybe they shouldn't have left the waiting room. The head and their deputy are there. Chung'an answered him to leave them alone, and he thinks they'll kill Ryuan in the waiting room before the fight. Their fool is tenacious and won't die so easily. At this time in the waiting room, Guy asked the teacher, was he looking for someone? Ryuan replied that yes, the person that came to see him. He is waiting for him. The girl asked if she could have a look. Who is it? Ryuan replied that it was the young lady Nayarin. The boy was surprised and asked with surprise, an ice phoenix? But he laughed a lot and said that the older fellow student was a joker. Ryuan threw a mug at his face and asked, does he see him as some kind of fool? He seems to have a problem with his eyesight, and he's going to check him out now. The guy yelled that he didn't have to and replied that he couldn't think of an older co-ed. It's just that that young lady is known for not socializing with men. That's why he was surprised that she came to see him. The guy asked, why was he so sure she was coming? Ruan replied that he had sent her an invitation and received a reply. The guy was surprised and asked, did the Ice Phoenix really answer? But at that moment, the girl replied that it looked like she had really come. The other students saw it too and asked, why is there an Ice Phoenix here? Could it really be her? She wasn't alone at this time, and Nan was saying how she wanted to get rid of those guards if Ji-cheon wasn't the son of the deputy head of the alliance. But Seal replied, nevertheless, it's not bad to sit quietly in the front seats, and since Yerin came to look at the guy, he must be unusually strong. Nan looked away and said that he looked like a guy who didn't feel sorry for his life. But an eagle suddenly flew into the place. Rin had received a letter from him earlier and said his name was Thunder, and told him to wait because she would write a reply now. Nan asked her, did she really want to go? Rin replied that she had something to check out, so she couldn't refuse. And here they are about to see how good he is. Seal said that the fight is starting. And there's the young lord who uses the paired swords and that solid apprentice too. Headsu said that the qualifying match between the swift fire sword Tang Peng and the first name B. Ryuan was starting. Ruan saw Rin and said she came after all. And let her relax today and listen to one tune. Rin said that he, what using chin, but how reckless. Ruan immediately took the tool and proceeded to martial arts at the expense of the tool. But Penn decided not to waste his time and pulverized the first-year player with the first punch. Ning asked her, didn't she know that sound technique was this guy's best technique? What a fool he is. Saul replied, is that why he brought Chin to the Three Saint Masters Festival then? Is that really his best reception? Rin says she doesn't even know how to say it. She's pretty sure his best technique isn't this technique. Ruan started to play an instrument, but Penn was also strong, and with each of his attacks he dodged with ease. He felt like it was even hard to play an instrument for a moment without this creep attacking him. But suddenly at the moment of attack, Penn used all his strength to do so, but Ruan easily dodged again. And using this moment, he launched a backhanded attack with his tool. Penn didn't even expect such a turn. And then Ruan started playing an instrument, so Penn could hear his melody he wanted to play. Everyone was greatly surprised and couldn't believe such a thing. Ning asked, how could he use Chin like that? Saul looked on in amazement and said, that's the sound right there. Is that the sound technique? Ruan did his best to overpower his opponent and lastly lifted him up and held him as if he were dead. But suddenly someone wanted to run up, but Ruan told him to stop. After all, this guy just covered his eyes and hasn't fallen down yet. He's even holding a sword. And how about letting him be calm for a while? And after that, Penn dropped the sword from his hand, and the judge immediately started shouting that Disciple Ruan had won. The girls were excited and said that Ruan was awesome, and they really didn't think that someone else's fight would make their hearts beat like that. The students were also excited and said that this guy had unusual strength, and they heard that he got the highest score in the entrance exam. Ruan looked at it and said that the atmosphere had somehow changed, and for some reason it wasn't pleasant. Chonghong replied that it was natural. This atmosphere changed because everyone here saw him slapping the Chinmei guy. Heron also told the guy that his match was impressive, and most won't come to see his match again, but people with specific tastes liked it. Ruan said that it wasn't a problem for him. It's already too crowded here from the beginning, and there's even chairs over there. They obviously didn't come to see him. Who's sitting there? Yun suddenly crept up from behind and was telling Ryan that he was good too. But the first official battle of the famous 7th Divine Sword, Moen Hui, is being held there. Chung Hong replied that for sure, it's only natural for a descendant of the Holy Sword to have such a placement area. There are guys from the Kujong and 8 community there, so there's no need to nag him about nothing. Ruan said, what a strange name that was. What's another slop and flutter? Heron asked him. He really doesn't know about the division of the Heavenly Warrior Academy? But Chang Hong told him that if he didn't know, then let him be careful with his words. Pomoy, a group of disciples from the 9 great factions, and Trembling, a group of disciples from the 5 great families. Yoon gave a surprised look and said it looks like it's starting. The guy from Kunlun Suek High School asked Hui if his shoulder was okay and ceded the initiative to him. Eek said he heard that the students of their school owed him a debt, and it's even a pity it wasn't him he met first, and he thinks Hui was unlucky. Hui replied that the more he fights, the stronger his sword becomes, and he thinks his opponent is lucky. Hui immediately picked up speed for his attack and said then he would start first. Ek couldn't even do anything against this attack and finally realized that he had lost, as Hui's sword was in front of his face. Eek decided to accept defeat like a real man and said that he had lost. The judge declared him the winner immediately. 8-8 Community Counselor Tan Mok Wu said that Hui was so quick to deal with Chusuyuk, one of the 8 swords of the Kujong community. And the 7th divine sword is really talented. The longer one looks at it, the more one wants it. Deputy Head Yajin replied, "He is fast and accurate. He will be useful." W was surprised and said, "Unbelievable. Did their deputy, known for his cruelty, praise someone?" And asked Hiju, "Is that why she wants to lure the 7th divine sword god to their side as soon as possible?" Ju replied that yes, but don't overdo it. It seems like a lot of people are already anxious to get into action. And by the end of this festival of the 3 holy masters, there will be no room left for the people on the other side. But the enemies at this time were also present, and the guy said that no matter how careless Suyek was, but the 7th divine sword was truly worthy of praise. The guy asked, wasn't he a danger to Cheon Hung's 3rd shining sword? Hung replied not to worry about it. The boy said suddenly, giving up on him, he would see after a while. How hard he was trying. The enemy asked him why he thought that. The guy replied that because the body doesn't lie, and let him look at his palms. Hung said yes. Even though he's not a threat to him, it's true that he's expected to do great things. Don't worry, he will definitely welcome him. The enemy replied that of course he should. In this festival of the 3 Saint Masters Festival, he's not going to give up any holy places, especially in a battle where he'll be participating in a descendant of the Holy Sword. Yoon was telling the guys that it was a really awesome fight and must be uncomfortable surrounded by students if you need help. Heron wondered if they would leave him alone for a while. It would be worth doing some research to see what the price of showing off one's great looks was. Ruan said it was all a farce. I wish I could kick him so he'd go flying. How many arms does he have? 1 or 3? Chung'un answered him not to say so much. He had put on a show himself. But yes, it was too much. He realized that using such a technique, even though his wound hadn't even healed yet, it would probably reopen. Well, this was his first official fight, so he wanted to make sure he could win. Ruan told them to forget about this showing off. They'd better go eat, and I wonder if they serve a lot of meat at the festival. Chung'un replied that it's better to favor nutritious fish and root vegetables than fatty meat right now, and he's a bigger fool than Mo and Hui. Suddenly, Ju perked up her ears and heard a student talking. Wu asked her what was wrong. Ju replied that no, nothing. It just seemed to her that the man she was looking for was here, but she was glad that she would meet him soon. Ju realized immediately that she recognized him. The voice she had just heard was definitely the voice of the creepy guy who had learned her secret. And he's the sneaky one who snuck into the sorority house and made a mess of it, sure to stand out during the battle at the 3 Saint Masters Festival. And this pervert liked the attention so much that he won't hold back from participating this time. She was very angry and was mentally telling him to get his ass ready and wait for the day she would find him and punish him. Ruan said on the way out that he was disappointed and thought there would be a special menu at the 3 Holy Masters Festival. And he asked the uncle why he brought them to this backwoods place. Heron also said that he didn't even say anything else and started picking his teeth after eating. But how long would it take them to follow him? Hui replied to them that if it wasn't urgent or too important, he would go prepare for the second round. Ruan had said that the second round for those who participated today wouldn't be until 5 days later, and he already wanted to prepare. He knew that the wound that had just opened was a bluff. Yoon said that it really was too much. He urgently needed to rest. Chun Young was also supportive and replied that he didn't need to go with them from the beginning. It wasn't that important. Heron suddenly said that it looked like Hui wasn't needed here. Ruan asked, then why did they bring this wounded man with them? Chung'un replied that he was just in it for the company. Honestly, to win, it takes unimaginable courage and flexibility to overcome all the risks and confusion. Without friends, it's difficult. Hui says he's not going to quibble. He's in on it too. Once there, Chun Hong said that here they can focus on their strategy without worrying about anyone overhearing them. And now let them listen carefully and take note. Hui asked, what is this? Chun Kong replied that it was the very color of the 3 Holy Masters, information that would help prepare for battle. Ruan suddenly bowed his head and said, Master Evaluation Community, the festival of the 3 Holy Masters Festival? Chung'un replied that yes, he did. He thinks they are out of the loop. The hidden game of the Three Saint Masters Festival will begin when the preliminaries are over and the final battles begin. And guessing who will win the festival of the three holy masters? This will be the biggest confrontation among all the Heavenly Warrior Academy disciples and warriors and official guests. And if you win this hidden confrontation, you can get a fortune. Heron suddenly said that he had heard from the corner of his ear that there were three holy masters making bets at the festival. So that's what the master appraisal community is all about. Yun asked, isn't this gambling? Isn't that allowed in the academy? Chung Hong replied that it was natural. And that's why the exact name of the game is a charity competition judging festival, Triple Holy Masters Festival for the sake of their bright future. And 30% of all the money will be donated to the running costs of the Heavenly Warrior Academy. Hui Wei said that since it wasn't an obscene gamble, he would gladly participate. Ruan replied that it was great. But why was it necessary to gather in such a remote area for the sake of it? Since he was going to win, it seemed like just writing down his name would suffice. Chung'an asked him, did he think it was enough to guess only the final winner? Not only the winner, but also the runner-up and so on to the quarterfinals. He means, you can make a fortune. This time there are 290 people participating in the Triple Holy Masters Festival. Participants make into 4 groups, which pass the qualifying stage and go to the finals. 128 of them participate in the battle to honor the accomplishments and teachings of the Holy Sword. Due to the fact that this group has the largest number of men that use swords, the competition among the participants is the fiercest. And their Mo and Hui is from that group. There are 46 other participants honoring the achievements and teachings of the Queen of Swords. All of them are from the girls' dormitory. Not all of the girl participants use swords. And there are 52 other students honoring the merit of the Holy Blade. All of them are from the men's dormitory. It was originally rumored that Saint Blade's granddaughter would also participate, but she declined. Another 54 people who are hard to place in one of the previous 3 groups, or they want to honor the memory of other mighty heroes from the 3 heavenly warriors, are included in the new heroes group. There are guys participating who use martial arts other than swords. Ruan is part of that group. Ruan said that the kid he fought with used a sword. Why then did that weirdo from the Holy Sword group get to him with the sound technique? Heron laughed and asked, really why? Chung Hong replied, how come why? If he said that he belongs to the Ice Phoenix Guards, the answer himself will find the answer probably. Yun started to say, is it really because Ruan? Chung Hong said that there were times when students that used blades and swords looked down on those who used other martial arts and specifically aimed at them. But this time, regardless of their specialization, they applied to a group of new heroes to get their hands on him. Ruan said, it turns out he raised the level of the group of new heroes? Heron replied that he definitely made it more interesting. Anyway, Brother Chan, let him continue. Chunghong said that after the completion of 3 fights in the qualifiers from each branch, 16 people are selected based on the results of the matches and sent to the finals. And even the day the finals date is announced. This is the only day you can apply to participate in the Mastermind Evaluation community. And he spent several sleepless nights to pre-select 30 suitable candidates. They have to analyze 2 people from those who pass 1 qualifier and eventually pick 4, and 1 person from each group. Hui said that he still needs to prepare for the fight. Heron replied that Ruan Hui and Brother Chan are analyzing Group 1, and he and Yun are analyzing Group 2. Do they really need to pick 4 people? Chang Hong told them to listen carefully. For each contestant who made it out of the group to the finals, they get 20 points, and 100 points if all 4 are guessed. 100 points for the finalists and 200 for the winner. And do they know what happens if they guess everyone all the way through to the quarterfinals? Yoon asked, so what's going to happen? Chung Hong replied that he would get half of all the stakes except for the Academy Commission. And depending on whether the bet was big or small, you can get a hefty payout. And it leads to, if they have the money. Upon arriving at the Academy, Yun searched under the wall for something and said that he had definitely hidden them somewhere here. Suddenly, he yelled out that he had found it all. He realized it was the money Sabu had given him to use when he needed it. Yun asked, is that really necessary? He won't lose them, right? Chun Hong replied earlier that he's never been wrong before. So they just need to get the money. And if they lose money, he'll call them big brothers. And Yun remembered that Brother Chan speaks so confidently. Heron said that even though he's broke, he'll get them, even if he has to dig a lock. Ruan also said he had no money, but he thinks he'll get something if he looks for it. He's not some coward. Hui wasn't confused and asked right away, how much is needed? Yoon remembered it all and said that the others were so brave, and he would trust him too. Heron also went in search of money and entering the forest, say it is really here. He found money for an emergency. And the fact that he's using them to rip off the light faction guys will do the trick. Chung'un just sat at home and received bags of money saying that the guys were now working with more enthusiasm than in their main jobs. But the email said they sent information on more than 30 students, and may he not forget their share for their diligence, and they have faith in their chapter. But Ruan went to his apprentice and asked him how much money he had, and why is he making such a disgruntled face? Doesn't he like the fact that he's taking 30% of his income? But didn't they agree on that in advance? Didn't he give him a steep discount? The student was hoping to get him to shut up, and he wanted to punch that face 108 times in a row. Ruan asked, is he unhappy with their student-teacher bond? Maybe he wants to break it right now? The Red Dragon replied that no. It wasn't the expense that was the problem. He just thought for a second when he asked him about investing money. Ruan said knowing how much money there is and knowing how to make decisions are the basics, and he can't even do that. So I suggested he do this. Let him give him all the money except the amount for lodging for this month. He will multiply it and give him half of it as a fee. 6 days later, the team captain slapped his hand on the table and said, what is this nonsense? What is this nonsense? The guy replied that their future was at stake and there was nothing they could do. The two of them saw it too, didn't they? The captain said that anyway, how could they betray their senior fellow student? Huck lost his temper and yelled that no. Are they all crazy? There's no way he's betraying a damn fellow student. One of the students said that he thought it was quite dangerous. Sooner or later, the older student will find out. But Yell didn't like it and asked betrayal. Why go to such an extreme? Let them think about what their senior fellow student had told them. The girl said it's obvious he's going to be the winner of the new heroes group and the overall finalist. So he wants to place a bet and take all the prize money? The captain replied, that's right. So if they bet on another person, it is tantamount to betraying a senior fellow student. Yale said the most important part in his words is looking forward to seeing the results. So he hopes they make money. The student also said that really. The most important thing is not to lose all the money by betting on an older fellow student. And all of this is true. It seems that the older co-student, like Cebu, is very fond of money. Yale replied that they do. Therefore, the cold-blooded choice of the winner, not constrained by the senior co-student, is not betrayal, but instead caring. The captain heard the words and asked him, did he mean that the older co-ed could lose? Had he forgotten how Huck had fallen from his blow? The girl told the captain he was right. Was there any other apprentice who could do such a terrible job on Huck of the Red Falcons, a promising member of the beggar gang? But the second student said it was true that he was strong. But during the senior co-disciples fight during the preliminaries, something came to his mind. Spruce replied that he wanted to mention that too. For some reason, he used the sound technique. The captain said he, too, still hasn't forgotten the senior co-captain's appearance at the first qualifying match. The girl replied that the sound was clear and beautiful then, but it was more like undermining morale than sound technique. The student asked, what is it? Because a few days later in the second match, the sound technique was no longer the same. The guy also said it was the first time he had seen such an extraordinary performance. At the second match of the qualifiers, he fought very badly. The student said that of course she wasn't a musician, but it was more of a sword fight than a sound technique. The strings acted as a kind of thin sword. And come to think of it, his final strike was outside the rules altogether. Hawk asked, in what martial arts was kin used as a bloody lethal weapon? He himself replied that he was correct. And especially strange was the third match of the qualifiers, which he saw today. And the melody of his chin was terrible. The lively and subtle melody was complemented by a rhythmic and barely perceptible kick. Huck said it was as if he had lost control. If he had heard this tune sitting on the terrace on the first day of the summer heat wave, he would have burned not from the heat but from shame, the disciple replied. Or maybe he insisted on using the sound technique for that very purpose, to completely ravage his opponent's soul with humiliation and shame. The captain said that no, he didn't think so. According to a senior fellow student, he said that if he were him, he too would want to look graceful during the duel. The main thing is not winning, the main thing is participation. Yale said his parents always say if you have to bet money, do it like his life is on the line. And now the head is willing to risk his and our lives for something like sound engineering? The captain replied, what if the older fellow student found out that they had bet on someone else? Besides, what if he and his sound technique really did win? Jiren replied that the qualifying round is very different from the final round after all. In addition, the eighth god's sword, Young Ok-gi, who is from the Tang family in Sichuan, and Viji Cheon's whirlwind sword are among the group of new heroes this time around. The guy said that the eighth divine sword was still okay, but if he met Brother Cheon before the whirlwind sword. The student asked him, how could he call that rascal a brother? Why he used poison as soon as the fight started. Huck starts yelling that it's nothing. He knows it for sure, and he's betting his hand that he'll win no matter who fights against him. Yale replied to him that he respected his opinion, but unfortunately they needed the money. Guy told Huck to calm down, and so did Yale. In any case, sound technique is something. They know about their senior co-students' abilities that others don't know about. And do they think there's a person the older co-student will lose to in the group of new heroes? The girl replied that she was a little worried about Tan Moon Cheon, but the older fellow student is a crazy devil that even poison won't take. The second disciple said that there were still rumors that the whirling sword had already lost once to an older fellow disciple, but the captain replied that since the co-apprentice was Sabu's best student, he couldn't be inferior to him. The student said that everyone unanimously agreed that the older fellow student would win in the new heroes group, and then they better decide on the winners in the other groups. And we'll put on a senior student as a candidate for the #1 spot, and we'll think about an alternate option for the #1 spot. The captain asked in surprise, 2 choices for the first place? Yell asked him too. Did he mean they would have a hidden agenda? The student replied that yes. The first option of betting on the older fellow student, they will show him, and the second option of betting will be done secretly, and that's their tactic. The person in charge the next day was telling everyone that those who wanted to register, let them get in line. From each group, 16 people made it to the finals, for a total of 64, who must go up to the leadership team and fill out a written registration form. Seol was saying that Sis Rin has #2, and I even wonder if there will be someone from the Queen of Swords group who will come out against it. It would be nice if Sis Ren participated as well. Nan replied that there was no need to participate to understand the level of strength. She too congratulates her on making it to the finals, and may she be careful not to hurt herself too badly. Seol said that she would do her best. Surely Rin won't bid in the master evaluation community, she asked. Nan replied that she definitely was. Could she possibly participate in this mayhem? In any case, apparently this time around, the Festival of the Three Holy Masters is being held in a particularly unusual manner. And at the moment of betting, Yell came up and was asked who he would bet on. The guy replied that he had been thinking for a long time about the situation at the Three Holy Masters Festival this time. What's he volunteering for? Asked the guy. The guy said, here's the receipt. He knew Yale was the heir to the merchants. And he looked at the paper and said, what a huge amount of money. And I think he got the name of the overall winner wrong. The person standing next to me said no. 57 Ruan, #7 Cheon-hyung, #5 Moen Hui, and can Yale fill it out again? Yale replied that no, he wrote it all right. The guy said that no, of course, their younger comrade is strong, but not that strong. Maybe he'll think about it. He's betting such a huge amount of money after all, right? Yale replied that he was right. It might seem like a reckless choice, but he would figure it out for himself. Suddenly, the guy remembered and said that there was another applicant who had made a similar bet. If this really works out, the two of them are going to make a hell of a fortune. Yale was surprised and asked, and who was the person who made such a bid? The guy replied that he thought a few friends had raised some money and made him a representative. Since he too, large sums, if he wins, he will get 100 times the bet. Yale replied, what a few other friends. He realized that since there was a large sum of money there, the older fellow student must have threatened the lives of his friends. That's his style. And maybe even right now, the senior co-ed's puppets are watching him. As he walked away, Yol was glad that it was good that he left the rest to Huang Bo and his strategy. He doesn't even know where those puppets are hiding. But suddenly someone came up and asked, is it the young Mr. Yum Yell who has nothing but money? And with his eyes flashing like this, he collected money from the Red Falcons team and became their representative. But let him listen, as awful as he was. Why the hell did he bet on that scumbag? Yale replied that he didn't know anything. Just pick someone who looks 10 times stronger than his candidate. Or does he want to bet on the acumen of the Red Falcons team? The guy replied that except for Cheon-hung's gleaming sword, about the rest he would have his eyesight checked. Yale realized it was a little over the top, and that mole dude was provoking him. Suddenly someone else came up to them and asked, "The Blue Dragon team versus the Red Falcons?" They were both surprised, and Yale wondered where he had popped out of so suddenly. And why was he holding it? The Red Dragon walked up to them and called them fat bags and asked them what they just said. The next day, the judge said that the first opponent in the final 8th Divine Sword, Young-Ok, Chung-hong said that the 8th Divine Sword is damn fast. It has such a fast and classy fighting style, as if it has 8 arms. So this time he'll have to deal with him flawlessly with his Thunderkin. Is he clear? Their future depends on it. Let him listen carefully. Heron also told him to try to do that. Chanyan said that Ruan could even crack him with the hard part. But the moment the fight starts, that part will do like this, and his sword will shatter the kin. Ruan asked him what he even thought of his Thunderkin. Today, he was only going to use it to attack with the sound technique. One of the spectators came to the tournament and asked why there were so many people here. He was told that, strangely enough, there were many talented people in the group of new heroes this time. That's what caused such interest. But suddenly someone said it looks like they haven't heard those rumors yet. The Red Falcons team put the number 57 in the Masters evaluation community yesterday. The guy asked, what kind of opponent is the 8th Divine Sword opponent, Jung-Ok? Is this rookie really that good? But he was told that the first-year-old was probably good enough to have made it all the way here. But if he wanted to win money, he'd better bet on someone like a 7th Divine Sword. The newcomer is lucky and talented as hell. He's from some unknown school, but even the 7th Divine Sword recognizes him. They're both on good terms with the Red Falcons team after all, so there's nothing odd about that. The commander asked at that point, why were the students such know-it-alls? Bo replied that he had the feeling that the whole academy knew where they were and what they were doing. Suddenly Yale spoke up and apologized to them, saying that he didn't mean to attract so much attention. But during the argument with the jerk from the Blue Dragon team, the teacher came at them like the wind. The teacher asked them why they did not answer him. Are they deaf? Or should they have their ears cleaned now? Yale thought that the teacher was always angry, but why was he angrier than usual today? But he replied that he and his buddy from the Blue Dragon team had a disagreement over who would be the final winner. The teacher asked him who he had bet on. Yale replied that he had bet on the senior student Ruan. The teacher turned to a student from the Blue Dragon team. Who did he bet on? Yale replied that he was on Cheon-hung, the 3rd shining sword from the Blue Dragon team. The teacher got very angry at that moment and immediately hit Yale on the head. He gave him the money and said that he was betting everything on Ruan. Let him go and write down his name. And he warns, whether it's a wager, a contest, or a fight, they must surely win against the ice badasses. Got it? Yale told the guys that he went to bid for a teacher, so he got even more attention in line the second time than the first. The guy told him he was doing good. If it hadn't been for Yale, he would have appeared right in front of him, and he would have been in a hopeless situation. Hawk replied that he wouldn't even get caught. And there was also Huang Bo. But the girl said that it would work out. Did Sensei put it pretty much the same way they did in the first plan? Suddenly, someone in the crowd asked them, are they saying that first-year Ruan will use the sound technique? The girl heard it and asked, is that really the teacher's voice? A beauty with a heavenly voice, Hong Ran, came up to them and said that it was hard to believe that a newcomer would appear at the 3 Holy Masters Festival that uses sound technique. She asked if a first-timer could learn sound technique in just 3 months. Guy replied that he was nevertheless confident enough to invite them, and they say he even prepared 2 invitations for them to the finals. He thought he was just sleeping through every lecture. Teacher Ran said she's sure it's just bravado. He hasn't grown to that yet, but she's worried for some reason. Ran suddenly turned to the guys and said that they were disciples for going to lectures with Ruan, and disciple Ruan would really use sound technique during battle? And his thunder chin, she asked. Chung-hong replied that yes, he would indeed be using the chin of thunder, and now the fight would begin, and she would see for herself. Seo was excited too, due to the fact that she arrived just in time for the start. Sister Ren said that there was nothing to watch here, but she liked the strange fighting style of the gentleman with disheveled hair. And Sister Rin's fight will start in half an hour, so there's time. So how weird is the fight going to be today? All of a sudden, a competitor came out and asked, how much had the level of the Triple Holy Masters Festival dropped this time around? All sorts of crazy rabble managed to make it to the finals. The guy asked him, how dare he come out in front of him with bangs that covered his eyes? And even with kin. How could he ignore a person from the Song School of the Nine Great Factions? Ruan asked him to be quiet and replied that he was going to use the sound technique. Why was he making so much noise? And have him cover his mouth. Since this is the beginning of the final selection, he will play a happy tune for him. The guy got really angry after saying that and yelled at him to shut up. He's just a student who couldn't even write down his own school. The guy immediately at the moment of those words started attacking Ryan, but he was able to dodge and even played his music. Captain Namgung was worried about his senior disciple and wondered, was he really using the sound technique today? Chung Han was panicking hard at this point too, and hoping Ryan would beat this guy up, and then cornered him and gave him a meat grinder. Ran was surprised and said that it looked like saying he was from some nameless school was just idle chatter. It's a professional game. Why does this child play in a way that she cannot teach others nor learn herself?